uh, friends and colleagues, bhaiyo, behno, dosto, while welcoming you and presenting to you the context of this 139th episode old webinar series on Rethinking City, and the third part of the series on slums are solvable. Odisha shows the way. I'm here to perform three simple tasks, telling you as to who we are or why we are doing this webinar series for the past many years, introducing and thanking those who are making this new webinar series possible, and to share with you significance of the six-part webinar series, Slums Are Solvable. Let me first tell you why we are doing this webinar series for so long. And what are the objectives? And what do we hope to achieve? It's all about India's urban challenge. Its complex nature, our inadequate response, its impact on the nature of our cities, and also quality of life of our citizens, price we would pay if we do not wake up to the demands of the challenge, and a need to put together a broad-based, widely inclusive societal partnership to meet the urban challenge. This webinar series, which is going on for almost 4 years, is to take the urban challenge to people, to all the stakeholders. It is based on the conviction that India's urban challenge is very formidable, and meeting it is not possible by any single agency or institution. Meeting the urban challenge in a manner that delivers good, livable, productive, and healthy cities requires a broader societal partnership, and all actors and stakeholders will need to contribute to that process. And what we are doing here, this long webinar series, is a small part of the effort in building a wider societal partnership. I'm not sure of the success or the impact. However, we are convinced of the need for the effort and its direction. The second task is to tell you the nature of the slum problem in cities of the global south. Unending search for approaches and solutions. Limited success achieved till death. And promising approach, strategy, and solution that has come up in Odisha through a government program called Jaga Mission. Whereas cities of global south, be that in Africa, Asia, or Latin America, are struggling to find ways to address the slum problem, in Odisha, some remarkably innovative and exemplary work is happening in improving settlements and living conditions of the slum dwellers. Not only the slum pockets are changing into new respectable colonies and integrating in the mainstream cities, but the people, the communities in the margins of the society are getting a new deal of citizenship, dignified living, and a future promise. Their lives are changing. what is happening in cities of Odisha has such potential for learning, adoption, upscaling, and replication in other cities of India, even South Asia region, and the world, that we have named the series Slums Are Solvable. And the message and the example are so relevant that 5 major organizations concerned and working on development and future of cities and the slums have joined hands as co-hosts in telling the Odisha slum development story. I'm grateful to your Habitat, Cities Alliance, Tata Steel, Janagraha, and Center for Policy Research for their engagement and support in reaching the message across. Let me add that without their assistance, guidance, and contribution, it would have been difficult to reach the message wide and effectively. Let me take a few more minutes to share something more on the slum issue in a time perspective. Sorry, I'm doing this, but I got very convinced when I saw this. I recently came across a brochure of a 5-city continuous seminar called Non-Conventional and Alternative Approach to Shelter the Urban Poor, Local and International Experience. It took place in Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, Hyderabad, and Ahmedabad. Continuous 18 days between 7th and 25th January 1981. That means 46 years ago. Had more than 50 partner agencies, government, academic institutions, NGOs, community groups, and hundreds of participants in each city. It was conceived and implemented by a small NGO called ASAG, Ahmedabad Study Action Group, and I was privileged to lead this initiative. This is what the brochure says, and I just pick up a few things. It says, is the problem beyond, this is 40 years ago, 41 years ago, is the problem beyond any reasonable solution? Will thousands capable but impoverished who now live in the settlements and unhygienic environment continue to live where they are now? Will the quality of life in our metropolitan cities continue to deteriorate? Is there a ray of hope for our big cities and their poor? And then it says, the seminar also provides an opportunity for each city to analyze and learn from its own efforts, the effort of other cities in India, and the experiments in low-cost, relevant, and replicable housing strategies being tried out in selected cities of the developing world. And then says, the understanding of people's indigenous housing processes and the development of strategies to facilitate these actions are important focal point of this seminar. The reason I brought this up and want to end with these questions: have we moved decisively? Have we made definite progress in solving the problem of inadequate housing for the poor and low-income people? Or are we stuck somewhere? That conference and this webinar series are 4 decades apart. What has changed? Are not the concerns, the excuses, the reasons the same? And see in other areas, how far have we moved? Then we had not even heard of a word called webinar. Technology has changed. Have the mindset and solutions changed? So I thought with the sobering thought, and taking you to this 1-year-old, 18-day long seminar. I hand over to Shubhagato ji to conduct the event today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kirti Bhai. It's so often we forget how various struggles have kind of shaped the world's thinking around informal settlements and slums, and what might have not been so easy or possible in the past seems to be very much within our reach going forward. So we are also delighted today to have such a collection of key players who have made the Orissa slum titling effort a reality. Over a very short period of time, there's been a lot of progress in granting land rights to slum dwellers in the state of Orissa across its 115 cities. So we are delighted that we have a lot of the communities who have directly contributed, and we will hear from them about their role. But we are equally delighted that some of the key players who have guided this process, solved for it as problems have emerged, and have managed to implement this at scale, are with us today. So we have I will not go through the order of the discussion, but just to flag that at this stage we are very delighted that we are being able to hold this, and I'm sure everyone is going to learn a lot from today's event. As Kirti Bhai mentioned, today is the third of this 6-seminar series, and the focus is very much on land titling, on slum land titling, the new law that Orissa came up with, and how the implementation exercise went, as well as the partnerships that evolved as in kind of trying to deliver to the mandate that the law had created. I would first like to request SDM member and president from Mahima Nagar, Bhubaneswar, the Slum Dwellers Association, to please make an intervention. Srinibas Mallik, sir.
Namaskar.
Namaste.
Srinibas Mallik, Mahimanagar, Gadakono, 1 number 9, Mahimanagar SDM President Srinibas Mallik. ମୁଁ ମହିମାନଗର ବିଷୟରେ କିଛି କହିବାର ସୁଯୋଗ ମିଳିଥିବାରୁ ମୁଁ ନିଜକୁ ଧନ୍ୟ ମନେ କରୁଛି। ଆମେ ଏଇ ବସ୍ତିରେ ଆଜିକୁ 16 ବର୍ଷ ଧରି ଘର କରିଅଛୁ। ମୁଁ ନିଜେ 16 ବର୍ଷ ଧରି ଯେତେବେଳେ ଫାର୍ଷ୍ଟ ଟାଇମ୍ ରହିଥିଲି ଘର କରିକି, ସେତେବେଳେ ଚାରିକରେ ପୁରା ଜଙ୍ଗଲମୟ ଥିଲା, ନା ରୋଡ୍ ଥିଲା, ନା ଲାଇନ୍ ଥିଲା, ନା ଡ୍ରେନେଜ୍ ଥିଲା, କୌଣସି ସୁବିଧା ନଥିଲା, ନା ପାଣି ବି ଟିକେ ନଥିଲା, ଯୋଉଟାକି 1 କିଲୋମିଟର 2 କିଲୋମିଟର ଯିବାକୁ ଆସିବା କରିକି ପାଣି ଆଣିକି ଖାଇବାକୁ ପଡ଼େ, ଏବଂ ଲାଇନ୍ ନଥାଏ। ଡିବି ଯୋଉ ଲଣ୍ଠନ ଲଗେଇକି ଆମେ ରହିଛୁ ଏଠି, ମାନେ ବହୁତ ଅସୁବିଧାର ସମ୍ମୁଖୀନ, ଯୋଉଟାକି ମାନେ କହିଲେ ନ ସରେ। ତା ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ଧୀରେ ଧୀରେ ଘର ବଢିବା ପାଇଁ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଲା, ଯୋଉଟାକି ଆଜିକି 210 ପରିବାର, 10-15 ପରିବାର ଆମେ ଏଠି ବସବାସ କରୁଛୁ। ସେତେବେଳେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଲାଇନ୍ ନଥିଲା କି ପାଣି ନଥିଲା, ଆମେ ବିଏମ୍ସିକୁ ବାର ସମସ୍ତେ ମିଳିମିଶି ଦୌଡ଼ିଛୁ ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କୁ କହିଛୁ ଯେ ଆମେ ବହୁତ ଅସୁବିଧାର ସମ୍ମୁଖୀନ ହେଉଛୁ, କିଛି ଆମର ସୁବିଧା ନାହିଁ। ମୁଁ ଜଣେ ନିଜେ ହ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡିକ୍ୟାପ୍ ପର୍ସନ୍, ଯୋଉଟାକି ମୋତେ ଟେକା ଉଠା, ମୋ 2ଟା ଗୋଡ଼ ବିଚାର, ଯୋଉଟାକି ମୋତେ ଟେକିକି ନେବା ଆଣିବା କରିବାକୁ ପଡ଼େ, ଯୋଉଟାକି ମୋ ଫ୍ୟାମିଲି ସେଥିରେ ବହୁତ ଅସୁବିଧାର ସମ୍ମୁଖୀନ ହୁଅନ୍ତି। ନା ମୋତେ ହୁଇଲ୍ ଚେୟାର କରିବା ପାଇଁ ରାସ୍ତା ଅଛି, ନା ଲାଇନ୍ ଅଛି ଚଳିବା ପାଇଁ, ନା କୌଣସି ସୁବିଧା ନଥିଲା ସେତେବେଳେ, ଯୋଉଟାକି ମାନେ ବହୁତ ଅସୁବିଧାର ସମ୍ମୁଖୀନ ହେବାକୁ ପଡ଼ୁଥିଲା। ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ବିଏମ୍ସିର କିଛି ଅଧିକାରୀ ଆସି ତାକୁ
ट्रांसलेशन कर दियंतु।
श्रीनिवास सर, मुझे ट्रांसलेशन कर दिए, तापरे आपण कंटिन्यू करिवे। हाँ, so I would translate for what Srinivas sir just mentioned. He mentioned that he has been staying in this particular Mahimanagar settlement for more than 20 years, and he has around 210 families as neighbors. and they have been staying here for a long period of time with much difficulties, like they did not had any kind of civic services like road and all network connectivity, sewage, nothing. They had approached to the corporation multiple times. Mr. Srinivas himself have approached, and being an handicapped himself, he faced lot many difficulties in commuting and also in the daily course. So that has been how Mahima Nagar settlement earlier. Now, Srinivas sir, upon continue karantu, ମୁଁ ତାପରେ translate କରିଦେବି. I'm requesting Srinivas sir to continue further.
ତାପରେ ଆମର ସେଠି ଲୋକମାନେ ସବୁ ଏକଜୁଟ ହୋଇ ବିଏମସି ର କିଛି ଅଧିକାର ଆସିଲା ପରେ ସେମାନେ ଆମକୁ କିଛି ମୁକ୍ତା ଯୋଜନାରେ ରୋଡ ଦେଇଥିଲେ ଏବଂ କିଛି ଲାଇଟ୍ ଦେଇଥିଲେ। ତା ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତ ସମୟରେ ଆମେ ଟିକେ ସୁବିଧା ଅଳ୍ପ ଅନୁଭବ କଲୁ ଯେ ଠିକ ଅଛି ଆମେ ଚଳିବା ପାଇଁ ସୁବିଧା ହେଉଛି। ପାଣିର ବନ୍ଦୋବସ୍ତ ନଥିଲା ସେତେବେଳେ, ସେମାନେ କହିଲେ ଆମେ ଟ୍ୟାଙ୍କର ଦେଇକି କିଛି ନେଇକି ଚଳ ଭଲ ମନ୍ଦ କର, କିନ୍ତୁ ଟ୍ୟାଙ୍କରରେ ଯେତିକି ପାଣି ଦିଅନ୍ତି ଆଭେଲେବୁଲ ଆମକୁ ହୁଏ ନାହିଁ। ତ ହୁଏ ନାହିଁ ମାନେ ଆଜି ସକାଳେ ଦେଇଥିବ, କେତେବେଳେ ସନ୍ଧ୍ୟାବେଳେ ଦେଇଥିବ, କେତେ ଚାରିଟା ଦେଇଥିବ, କୌଣସି କାମ ଧନ୍ଦା ଯାଇଥିବ, ପାଣି ରଖିନଥିବ, ଚଳିବା ପାଇଁ ବହୁତ ତକଲିଫ ହେଉଥିଲା। ତା ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ଆସିଲେ। ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ଆସିବାରେ ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ସହାୟତାରେ ଆମକୁ ରାସ୍ତା, ଡ୍ରେନେଜ, ସୁରେଜ, ଲାଇଟ୍ ଆଉ ସଭାଗୃହ, ଓପନ ସ୍ପେସ୍ ଏବଂ ଆମର କିଛି ଖେଳିବା ପାଇଁ ଜାଗା ଚିଲଡ୍ରେନ୍ ପାର୍କ ସହିତ ଆମକୁ ତାକୁ ସହାୟତାରେ କରାଗଲା ପରେ ଆମକୁ କିଛି ମାତ୍ରାରେ ମାନେ କ'ଣ ଆମକୁ ଚଳିବା ଯୋଗାଯୋଗ, ଯେହେତୁ ମୁଁ ହାଣ୍ଡିକା ଭୁଲଚାର କରିବା ରୋଡରେ ସୁବିଧା ହେଲା। ଲାଇଟ୍ ନଥିଲା, ପିଲାମାନେ ଯିବା ଆସିବା ଚଳିବା ପାଇଁ କି ରାତିରେ ମାନେ ବହୁତ ଲେଡିଜ ଲୋକ ହଉ, ଛୋଟ ପିଲା ହଉ, ମାନେ ସେଫ୍ଟି ନଥିଲା, ଯୋଉଟା କି ଆଜି ଆମେ ସୁବିଧା ଅନୁଭବ କରୁଛୁ। ତ ଏବଂ
So what Srinivas sir mentioned is that after they reached out to the corporations, there had been some temporary sort of arrangements. For example, a tanker facility was given for the water facility, which was not sufficient for the families out there. So even though there were services, but it was on parts and pieces, which was not sufficient for a general living. So eventually, when they got to know about Jaga Mission and Jaga Mission was introduced in their habitat, things started falling in place and they got a permanent solution to the issues that they were facing. For example, he cited that he, being especially challenged, was earlier unable to kind of commute properly, but after the intervention of Jaga Mission, when the services like proper road network connectivity was available, he was able to move. Similarly, he specified about the safety of the women in the communities earlier because there were no street lights and proper lighting were there. The women faced safety issues there, which after Jaga, when road, say, street light and the sewerage were there, sanitation, safety, which are essential components for women, have been addressed. Srinivas sir, ମୁଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ରିକ୍ୱେଷ୍ଟ କରୁଛି କଣ୍ଟିନ୍ୟୁ କରିବା ପାଇଁ।
ତାପରେ ଆମର ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ତରଫରୁ ଏସଡିଏ ଗୋଟେ ଗଠନ କରାଗଲା। ଏସଡିଏ ଆମକୁ ଲେଡିଜଙ୍କୁ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ହିସାବରେ ତ ଲେଡିଜଙ୍କୁ 6 ଜଣ ରଖାଗଲା, ଜେଣ୍ଟସକୁ 5 ଜଣ ରଖାଗଲା। ସେଥିରେ କମିଟି ହେଲା, କମିଟିର ସଦସ୍ୟମାନେ ସମସ୍ତେ ପ୍ରେସିଡେଣ୍ଟ, ସେକ୍ରେଟାରୀ, କେଶରକୁ ଉପସ୍ଥାପନ କଲେ। ତାପରେ ସେଟା ରେଗୁଲେସନ କରାଗଲା, ରେଗୁଲେସନ ଦ୍ୱାରା ଆମେ ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟକୁ ପଠେଇଲୁ। ଯେକୌଣସି କାମ ହୁଏ ଆମର ବସ୍ତିର, ରୋଡ ହଉ କି ଲାଇଟ୍ ନାହିଁ, କୌଣସି କାହାର ଅସୁବିଧା ହଉ, କାହାର ରାସନ କାର୍ଡ ନାହିଁ, କାହାର ଲେବର କାର୍ଡ ନାହିଁ, କି ଆଜି କାହାର ଯେକୌଣସି ସମସ୍ୟା ହେଲା, ସେ ଆମ କମିଟିକୁ ଜଣାଇଲେ, ଆମ କମିଟି ସେଟାକୁ ଉପସ୍ଥାପନ କରି ବିଏମସି ପାଖରେ। ତ ଏବଂ କମିଟି ଯାହା ନିଷ୍ପତ୍ତି ନିଏ ସେଇ ଅନୁସାରେ କାମ ଚାଲେ। ଏବଂ କମିଟି ହେବା ଦ୍ୱାରା ଆମର କିଛି ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଉପକୃତ ହେଲୁ ଆମେ, ଯୋଉଟାକି କମିଟି ହିଁ ବିଏମସି ପାଖରେ ଉପସ୍ଥାପନ କରୁ ଏବଂ ତାର ମୁଁ ପ୍ରେସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ଅଛି। ତ ବସ୍ତି ଲୋକ ତ ସମସ୍ତେ ଆଉ ଦୌଡ଼ିକି ଯାଇପାରିବେ, ସମସ୍ତେ ଯେହେତୁ କାମ ଧନ୍ଦାରେ ବ୍ୟସ୍ତତା ଏବଂ ଅଫିସ ଦୌଡ଼ିବେ କିଏ, ତେଣୁ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ ଏସଡିଏ ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ଆମକୁ କରାଇଥିଲା ଏବଂ ତାର ଗୋଟେ ଆକାଉଣ୍ଟ ବି ଅଛି ଏସଡିଏର ଏବଂ ରେଜିଷ୍ଟ୍ରେସନ ବି ହେଇଛି, ଏଏନ୍ୟୁ ହେଇଛି, ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ତରଫରୁ ତାର ଏଏନ୍ୟୁ କରାଯାଇଛି, ଯୋଉଟାକି ଏସଡିଏ ଆଉ ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ସହିତ ଭଲ ସମ୍ପର୍କ ରଖି କାମ କରିବା ପାଇଁ। ଏବଂ ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ତରଫରୁ ଆମକୁ ଅଫିସିଆଲି ବି ଟ୍ରେନିଂ ଦିଆଯାଇଛି ଯେ ତମେ ଜାଗା ମିଶନର ତ ଏସଡିଏରେ କେମିତି ସୁପରିଚାଳନା କରିବ, କି କେମିତି ମିଟିଂ କରିବ, କେମିତି ଖାତା ଫିଲ୍ଅପ୍ କରିବ, ତ ଏସବୁ ପରିଚାଳନା କରିବା ପାଇଁ ସେମାନେ ଆମକୁ ଗୋଟିଏ ମିଟିଂ କରିକି ଏବଂ ତାର ଶିକ୍ଷା କେମିତି ଦିଆଯିବ, ତାକୁ କରିହେବ, ତା ପାଇଁ ଆମକୁ ଟ୍ରେନିଂ ବି ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି। ତା ବଦଳରେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମର ଏସଡିଏ ହେଲା କି ଏ ସବୁ ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ଆସିଲା, ଲେଡିଜ ମାନେ ଯୋଉ ଗ୍ରୁପ ମାନେ ବହୁତ ଅସୁବିଧା ଚଳୁଥିଲେ, ତାର ସେ ଯୋଉ ଗ୍ରୁପ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ ଦେଲେ, ଗ୍ରୁପରେ ବି କିଛି ଲୋକ ଲୋନ୍ ନେଇକି ଦୋକାନ କରିବା, ଭଲ ମନ୍ଦ କରିବା, ଯୋଉ ପିଲାମାନଙ୍କୁ ପାଠଶାଠ ପଢ଼ି ଚଳିବା ପାଇଁ କିଛି ରାସ୍ତା ସାହାରା ବି ମିଳିଲା। ଏସଓଜି ସାହାରା ମିଳିଲା ପରେ ତାପରେ ଉଷା ସର୍ଭେ ଆସିଲା।
ଟିକେ କହିଦିଅନ୍ତୁ।
Srinivas sir, ମୁଁ translate କରିଦଉଛି. So Srinivas ji has to now mention that when Jaga Mission came into their settlements, there was something called an SDA, which is the Slum Dweller Association that was asked to be formed within the community. So when they started forming the SDA, there were 5 ladies and there were 4, sir, 5 jana ladies thile au 4 jana purusha thile na?
5 ଜଣ ଜେଣ୍ଟସ ଥିଲେ।
5
5
jana
ଜଣ
gents.
6 ଜଣ ଲେଡିଜ।
Okay. There were 6 ladies and 5 gents who constituted the STA members, and then they started taking decisions on the welfare part of the slum. Whatever development in the slum was happening with the participation and consent of the Slum Dweller Association. Then eventually they also started participating in all the development works which was happening. In addition to that, under the STA, they learned about how an STA kind of works and executes, how do they hold meetings, how do they keep accounts. In addition to that, they also started making a resolution and they constituted the STA. They also opened a bank account and learned how to operate that bank account of the STA. So this has been something that they have formed an entity and they are working as of now under the STAs. Srinivas sir, ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ request କରୁଛି continue କରିବା।
ଆମର ଉଷା ସର୍ଭେ ଆସିଲା, ଉଷା ସର୍ଭେରେ ଡୋର ଉଡ଼ିଲା, ଡୋର ଉଡ଼ି କରି ଆମର SDA ସବୁ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟ ଥାନ୍ତି। ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟ ସହିତ ଘରକୁ ଘର ବୁଲି ଘର ସର୍ଭେ କରିବା, ଦେଖିବା 1 2 3 4 5 କରିକି ଏମିତି ସବୁ ଘର ଆମେ ତାକୁ ସର୍ଭେ କରେଇଛୁ। ସର୍ଭେ କରେଇଲୁ, କିଛି ଲୋକ ସେଥିରେ ଆବସେଣ୍ଟ ଥିଲେ, ଯୋଉଟାକି ଘର ଥିଲା ସେମାନେ ଆବସେଣ୍ଟ ଥିଲେ, ସେତେବେଳେ ଉଷା ସର୍ଭେରେ ଏଣ୍ଟ୍ରି ହେଇପାରିନାହାନ୍ତି। ଏବଂ ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ସେମାନେ ଆମକୁ LRC ଦିଆଗଲା। LRCରେ ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ପାଇଲୁ ଏବଂ କିଛି ଲୋକଙ୍କର ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ ଯୋଉଟାକି 484 ମାକ୍ସିମମ୍ ଥିଲା, ସର୍ବନିମ୍ନ 323, ଯୋଉଟାକି ଆଜି ଦିନରେ ଯୋଉଟାକି କିଛି ଲୋକ 484 ପାଇଛନ୍ତି, କିଛି ଲୋକ 323, କିଛି ଲୋକ 430, କିଛି ଲୋକ 256, କିଛି ଲୋକ LRC ପାଇନାହାନ୍ତି, କିଛି ଲୋକ ଉଷା ସର୍ଭେ ବି ଏଣ୍ଟ୍ରି ହେଇନାହାନ୍ତି, ଯୋଉଟାକି ଆଜ ପର ଯୋଉଟାକି 210.15 ପରିବାର ଯୋଉଟାକି ଏଥିରେ ଆଭେଲ କରିଛନ୍ତି। ଯେତିକି ଲୋକ ସେତିକି ଲୋକ LRC ପାଇଛନ୍ତି। ତାପରେ କୋଡ ଲାଗିଲା ଯୋଉଟାକି LRC ପାଇପାରିଲେ ନାହିଁ। ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଆମ ଲୋକ ଯୋଉଟାକି SDO ଉପରେ ଡିମାଣ୍ଡ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ଆମେ ତ LRC ପାଇବୁ, ଆମେ BLCରେ ଆପ୍ଲାଏ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରଧାନମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଆବାସ ଆପ୍ଲାଏ କରିଛନ୍ତି ସହଯୋଗ ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ, ତ ସେମାନେ ଆପ୍ଲାଏ କରିପାରୁଛନ୍ତି, ଆଉ ଯୋଉମାନେ ପାଇନାହାନ୍ତି LRC ସେମାନେ ଆପ୍ଲାଏ କରିପାରୁନାହାନ୍ତି। ଆମେ ସେଟାକୁ BMC ଅଧିକାରୀଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଉପସ୍ଥାପନ ବି କରିଛୁ, ଲିଖିତ ଆକାରରେ ବି ଦେଇଛୁ। ସେମାନେ ଆଶ୍ୱାସନା ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି ଯେହେତୁ ସେମାନେ ଇଲିଜିବଲ ହେବେ ଆମେ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ କରିବା, କାହିଁକିନା ଗୋଟେ ସ୍ଲମ୍ ହଉଛି ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କର ପାଇବାର ଅଧିକାର ଅଛି, ଆଉ ସମସ୍ତେ ନ ପାଇଲେ ସେ କାହାକୁ କହିବେ, ଆମ ସେ SDOକୁ ହିଁ କହିବେ। SDOର କାମ ହେଲା BMCକୁ ଜଣେଇବା କି ଜାଗା ମିଶନରେ ଜଣେଇବା। ତେଣୁ ସେମାନେ ଆଶ୍ୱାସନା ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି ସେ ସବୁକୁ ଆମେ କେମିତି ସଲ୍ଭ କରିବା। ଦ୍ୱିତୀୟ କଥା ହେଲା ଯୋଉ ଜାଗା ମିଶନରେ ଯୋଉଟା ଆସିଲା BLCରେ ଆପ୍ଲାଏ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଯୋଉମାନେ 150 କରିଛନ୍ତି, 150 କମ୍ ଅଛି, ସେମାନେ ଆଭେଲ କରିପାରୁନାହାନ୍ତି ସେଥିରେ, ଯୋଉଟାକି ଆବାସ ପ୍ରଧାନମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଆବାସ ଯୋଜନା ପାଇଁ। ତେଣୁ ସେ ଗୋଟେ ବଡ଼ ସମସ୍ୟା ଭିତରେ ଚାଲିଥିବା ସେମାନେ ସଲ୍ଭ କରିବେ ବୋଲି କହିଛନ୍ତି, ସଲ୍ଭ ଆମେ କରିଦେବୁ। ଦ୍ୱିତୀୟ କଥା ଯେ ଆମେ ଯେହେତୁ LRC ପାଇଲୁ କି ପଟା ପାଇଲେ, ଆମର ଯୋଉ BMC ସେମାନେ ଭାଙ୍ଗି ଦେବା ପାଇଁ ଚାହୁଁଥିଲା କି ଉଠେଇ ଦେବାକୁ ନେଇଯିବାକୁ ଚାହୁଁଥିଲା, ସେଥିରେ ଆମେ ଶାନ୍ତି ରହିଲୁ, ଯୋଉଟାକି ଆମର ଚଳି ଠିକ ନଥିଲା କି ଆଜି ଘରଟା ଭାଙ୍ଗିଦେବା, ଆମେ ଜିନିଷ ରଖିଥିବୁ, ଆମେ ନେଇକି ଯିବୁ କୁଆଡେ, କି ପିଲା ଛୁଆ ପାଠ ଏଇଠି କରୁଛନ୍ତି ତାଙ୍କୁ ନେଇକି ପଢେଇବୁ କୋଉଠି, ସେ ସବୁ ସମସ୍ୟାରୁ ଆଜି ଗୋଟେ ଆମେ ଯାହା ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ତରଫରୁ ଭୂମି ଅଧିକାର ପ୍ରମାଣପତ୍ର ପାଇବା ଦ୍ୱାରା ଆମକୁ ବହୁତ ଖୁସି ଲାଗୁଛି ଯେ ଆମେ ଆଜି ସବୁଦିନ ପାଇଁ ଏଇ ଜାଗାରେ ସବୁଦିନ ପାଇଁ ଆମେ ରହିବୁ। ଏବଂ ପ୍ରଧାନମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଆବାସ ଯୋଜନାରେ ୱାର୍କର ମିଳିକି ଯେତେ ଜଲ୍ଦି କାମ ହେଲେ ଯୋଉଟାକି ଆମେ ଛାତ ଘର ଖଣ୍ଡେ କରି ରହିବୁ, ଯୋଉଟାକି ଭଲ ଘର, ଯୋଉଟାକି ଆମେ ଆଜି ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଆଜବେଷ୍ଟ ଟିଣ ଘରେ ରହୁଛୁ ଏବଂ ପାଣି ରହୁଛି, ପିଲାମାନଙ୍କ ଚଳିବା ଶୈଳୀ ବି ରହୁନି, ଯୋଉଟାକି ଦ୍ୱିତୀୟତଃ ସଦାବେଳେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ କଥା ବଡ଼ କଥା ହେଲା ଯେ ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ରହିବା ଦ୍ୱାରା କି ଆଜି ଆମ ବ୍ଲକ ଆଦର୍ଶ ବିଜୁ ଆଦର୍ଶ କଲୋନୀ ରୂପେ ପରିଣତ ହେବାକୁ ଯାଉଛି। ଯେ ସଦାବେଳେ ବସ୍ତିର ଆଖ୍ୟା ଯୋଉଟା ଥିଲା, ବସ୍ତିର ଆଖ୍ୟା ଯୋଉ ରହୁ କି ଆଖ୍ୟା ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ଚାହିଁଲା ଯେ ବସ୍ତିର ଆଖ୍ୟା କେମିତି ଉଠିଯାଉ, କୋଉଠି ଅଛ ନା ଭୟମାନଙ୍କର ବସ୍ତିରେ ଅଛୁ, ଆଜି ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ ଯେ ବିଜୁ ଆଦର୍ଶ କଲୋନୀରେ ଅଛୁ କି ଆମର ଆମେ ଅଛୁ ଗରିବ ଥିଲୁ, ପିଲାମାନଙ୍କର ସ୍ଥିତି ରହିକି ଆମେ ଚଳୁଛୁ, ଆମ ପିଲା ଛୁଆ କାଲି ସକାଳେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ବାହାରକୁ ଯିବେ କୋଉଠି ଅଛ ନା ବସ୍ତିରେ ଅଛୁ। ତାର ଆଜି ଯୋଉଟାକି ଆମେ ବିଜୁ ଆଦର୍ଶ କଲୋନୀ ହେଲେ କୋଉଠି ଅଛ ନା ବିଜୁ ଆଦର୍ଶ କଲୋନୀ ରହୁଛୁ। ତେଣୁ ସେଟା ଆମକୁ ଗର୍ବ ଲାଗିବ, ଯୋଉଟା ବସ୍ତି କହିଲେ ଲୋକଙ୍କର ଗୋଟେ ନିଚ ରହେ ଯେ তুমি ବସ୍ତିରେ ଘର କରିଛ। ଆଜି ଆମେ ସେଟା କହିପାରୁଛୁ ଯେ ଆମେ ଭୂମି ଅଧିକାର ପ୍ରମାଣପତ୍ର ପାଇଲୁ, ଯେହେତୁ ଆମେ ଭାବିକି ଆମେ ନିଜସ୍ୱ ଜାଗା ନିଜସ୍ୱ ଘର ଏବଂ
Thank you, Suchi.
Yeah, thank you, Srinivas sir. So what Srinivas sir has mentioned at the last part is that the STA has been critical during the drone survey of the land rights initiative. So he mentioned how STA has been participating to understand, to showcase what is the extent of the slum, how to ensure that none of the households in the slum is missed out during the survey. He also mentioned that there were few households which were absent during the time of the survey. However, they ensured that gradually those households were also covered. This was one. Second is they have also been party in kind of taking all the grievances of the community members and the families regarding the land rights, if any. So whichever household have not received land rights, they have taken it up to the corporation, and the corporation have given them an assurance that this will be addressed. So the SDA has been kind of a facilitating body in taking the voices of the community to the local bodies. He has also mentioned that there are few of the households who have kind of applied for housing facility after receiving land rights, and there are few households which have not been able to kind of apply because the land rights have not been received. This also they have discussed with the corporations, and it will be getting addressed by as the corporation has confirmed. So Srinivas sir also kind of concluded that the land rights have enabled them to kind of aspire of taking up the housing facility and making a pakka house or a concrete house, which has been an essentiality of the slum community. They are currently staying in asbestos houses, wherein they have all water leakages and everything. And in addition to that, the children and the families also face an instability because till now they resided in a fear of eviction, that so tomorrow if somebody will evict them, so how will they continue their stability? With the land rights, that fear has gone, is what Srinivas sir had to conclude. Thank you, Srinivas ji.
Thank you so much, Srinivas ji. That was very interesting the way you placed it, and thank you so much, Suchisnata, for the translation. Now, the question that comes out is how did from the public side, how did this intervention work? And we are delighted that we have the best person to talk about it in detail. Mr. Shishir Dash has been championing and spearheading this exercise, first from Tata Trust and more recently from Tata Steel Foundation. And we are so happy he's not someone who we get to talk, gets to present his challenges and all of that very much. So we are really delighted that we have him today. Over to you, Shishir Bhai.
Thank you, sir, so much, and thank you, Srinivas ji, what you have told. Srinivas sir, आपण कहला पर हमारा विशेष कुछ कहबार नहीं. So what I am saying to Srinivas ji that after he has spoke, then I have nothing to speak more. So everything he has covered. So let me start from the day one how this has been started, and can you go to the next slide, Suchi? So if you look at the entire slum land tenure status in the slums of Odisha, there are 2,919 slums are there in Odisha. And if you look at the status, you can see the continuum of the land tenure security. If you look at the left side, then those are not having the land, the people without having any rights on the land, and towards right, slowly the rights has been accrued by the people. People see that there are 76% of the slum household, those who were without having any rights on their land, those are only government lands and they are staying. It can be a forest land, it can be railway land, it can be a revenue land, so any of those lands. And then some informal documents are available with some people, because there are some, what has been done, there are some agreements has been done between the land, I would say those who have already acquired the land, they sold to another person, and which is just an agreement is there. So it's not valid in the eye of the law or that. Okay. And the third type of people, those who are having the land patta, but on that patta, they have limited utility. Why it is limited utility? Because on that land, on that patta, that there is a stamp has been put by the government, is saying that this land is not final. So not final means neither they are going to get any benefit from the government on the basis of that land, or they are somehow they are not been able to use that land that as an asset also. And the last type, those who are having registered freehold, these are the 11% of people, those who are living in the slums. They are the, when the city area has been expanded, those are the villages. So those villages, because they have the land rights on those particular plot and land, so they have the freehold registered land. So those are also considered as part of the slum. Next, next slide. So if you look at from untenable to tenable, so then you can see that 69% of the people, those who are living on the government revenue land, those are very clear land and tenable land. And where this is the area where we started working. And then there are also 7% of people's households, those who are living on the departmental temple land and water bodies. Those lands are recorded as departmental land, recorded as temple land, or recorded as the water bodies like the river bed or something like that. But actually today that is not there. And 11% of people are living on the forest land, and 9% of the people are living on the private land, and 4% are mainly on the dumping yards, nearby dumping yards and places where there are very low-lying areas, those we are considering as environmentally hazardous. And so our work starts with 69% of these households, and slowly we moved some of them up to 11%, that is up to the forest and railway land. But beyond that, we have not done much. Can you go to the next slide, Suchi? Yeah. So major challenges, if you ask me, what was the major challenges? I am fortunate that I have been participated from the day one, and starting from the conceptualization to the execution, and also today I am with Jaga Mission. And if you look at the challenges, major challenges, what we have found, there was not a single template for us, or guideline that how to execute this type of work. So every time we have gone for a pilot and we learned from the pilot and then scaled it up. So when we started the pilot, we have never been done the pilot for the pilot, but every time we started that pilot should be for the scale up. So whatever we have done the pilot, we have made the mid-course correction from the learnings from the pilot, and then we have scaled it up. And then if you look at that, any of the city you go in India and you ask a question that how many households are living in the slum, then you will have different answers from different departments, from the different government officials. So it's because there is no accurate data is available on that. So that we have resolved by doing the each and every household footprints we have drawn from the aerial survey, and we have integrated with the door-to-door survey. So that is that information, this type of information, I would say that this type of information very hardly available in any of the informal settlements in India. And next is that we are not, because if you look at the development sector and the people, those who are working in the urban, so the skilled people, mostly the skilled people are in the rural areas, and the moving them to the urban area, getting skilled human resources in the urban area was a big challenge. So for us, continuously capacity building, in my subsequent presentations, you will see how the capacity building we have done. But there was an intensive capacity building, and a huge capacity building program has been undergone under this program. So these three were the major challenges for us, and these how we have resolved. And there are other challenges also, but one thing we have decided that the plan, you have no guarantee that your plan will work, but your goal is fixed. You cannot change that. So by that we achieved something that I'll come in the next subsequent slides. Next slide, Switch. Wherever you can go to a slum, so what was the practice is there, you relocate them to the periphery of the slum and a periphery of the city, where their livelihood is being disturbed, their children's education is being disturbed, and also the communication to their livelihood places is also very difficult. So that was the major practice what was been adopted in many of them, and evacuation was the only practices. In most of the places, evacuation was the practices. Next. So what we have done, that in some places, because I have already indicated you that there were people on the forest land and also railway land, which we could not settle them there, and also some people are on the hazardous lands also, hazardous, environmental hazardous land also. We could not settle them there. So what we have done, we went to city to ask that the government has asked that is a land is available nearby the slum, because our objective was at the state level, the government has decided that the slum settlement should not be shifted to beyond more than 1 kilometer in any places. So then when this question has been asked in the city, so everywhere, as usual, you will get a reply that there is no land is available within the city, and outside the city land is available. So what we have done for 115 cities, that is in Odisha, there are 115 cities. We have taken all 115 cities the satellite map, and then we have done the analysis from the satellite map that which are the lands are vacant. And the satellite map was little older, so that's why what we have done also, then we have gone for a ground truthing also and see that whether that land piece has been used. But to our surprising, we found that there are so many lands are available nearby the slum, wherever the slum is, that government land is available and they can be easily rehabilitated. If there is a will, then people can do it. But that is the most important thing, that one has to get into in-depth into this. Next. And also what we have done in there are slums having partial land also, because what has happened that in one slum there are two, it's based on 2 plots, it's based on 3 plots. You can see the darker area of this slum is the mainly the households, those who are settling on the untenable land. So there are also land is available within these slums, that where those untenable households can be accommodated in those places. So then what we have done in these places, we are seeing it as the densification strategy. From the densification, then we are consolidating these families, and in number of slums we have ensured that these families are getting the land rights. What Srinivas sir was saying, that some families, those who have not received the land rights because of they are on untenable land, we are also now going to consolidate those slums also in this phase, so that those people who are going to get land rights. In the first phase, we have done it in the medium and the small cities. In this phase, we are going to do in the larger cities. Can you go to the next? This is a unique situation that you will see that this land is recorded as the water body, but actually you can see where the river is flowing. The river has already been changed its course, and those slum that is been developed, and you can see those small squares, those are the houses of the slum. So, but those slums are today also is recorded as the water body. So that has been changed now. So what has been done, that has been gone to the RDC level, and the RDC level, there was a committee. In that committee, there is a inquiry by the revenue officer. Actually, if the land has been transformed, it's what we are saying, the type of the kisam, we are saying that is the kisam, that the type of land it has been changed, then government can recommend it. And in many places, what we have done, this conversion has been taken place in many places at the RDC level committee, and those people have also got the land rights. So because land is one of the very complicated subject, and also unless you get into the details of those, you will not be able to handle this situation. So that's why it's very, very important that each slum, each plot is having its own story, and how you will be able to provide the land rights to the people so that they can get other benefits. That is a challenge for on day-to-day basis that those has been handled. And in number of places that also the other departmental lands, like for 50 years, this slum has been developed and staying there, but department are not willing to give them the land, because this is been recorded in their name. So here the government has been discussed that if this is being done, then can it be possible? Can you remove those slums? If not, then why should you should give them the land rights? So that has been decided in many places in Odisha. Today, the departmental land has been converted into the land rights has been given to the slum dwellers also. Next. Some lands we could not do much, but like there are lands which are the forest lands, which are the some of the environmental hazardous land. So there we cannot give the land rights, but we have the government has done a interim arrangement. So what they have done that they have given them a land entitlement certificate. So land entitlement certificate is not a land right certificate, but land entitlement certificate gives a guarantee to the family that if you will be shifted from this place or you will be able to, this land will be converted into the tenable, then it can be given the land rights. And out of 1,15,000 households, we have already converted about 43,000 households now for the land entitlement certificate to land rights certificate. And we are also seeing that some families, if they can be shifted, government can also give them the land rights in the new location. Next. So there is also a process that how you can give land entitlement certificate. You can just go and give the land entitlement certificate. There is a extensive data analysis, what type of land, where, who's the family, where are they living, and all of that, and the background verification of that, whether they have other land in other places within the city, within any of the cities also or not. Then the notice inviting suggestions are being published. Then once that is decided, the land entitlement certificate is given, but there is also a notice has been given which has been given 15 days notice. So this is a 15 days notice to the public. If any objection one can give, then there is a scrutiny subcommittee at the urban local body level. So in which revenue officers are there, where the urban local body officials are there, they went for a field verification also for the check of the scrutiny subcommittee recommends. After that, the final authority is the urban area slum rehabilitation and redevelopment committee, or urban area slum rehabilitation and development committee in the corporations. And then after that, based on that recommendation, then final approval, then the land entitlement certificates are being issued. Next. So mainly what impact it has, if you'll ask me what impact it has, I will say about 2.5 lakh households has already received the land rights. Besides that, that is the most importantly, what the Srinibas are also told that every day we are scared of that there might be eviction and we are not sleeping in the night. So now there is no fear of eviction in number of slums, and also they all are using it as a proof of address and investing on those lands, like the slums that we have done in some of the slum land rights we have given in some of the slums. Overnight, the houses has been built. So in the entire slum has been transformed. So first phase we have given 40,000 beneficiaries the land, the housing support, and this phase already 32,000 has been given, but the rest the process is going on. And if you look at the cost that has been public public entitlements that has been unlocked, one can consider the value of the land. You can see the 95 lakh square meters of land has been mobilized for this, that has been given the land rights, and more than 75,000 million is the cost. If you look at the cost, if some like the value that is the government value, you can consider it is 75,000 million that has been gone to the poor people. So that's why I consider that is a great achievement of this program. Can you go to the next, please? So our major learnings are, the first learning is that we built up a data bank and the spatial equity, and now we can say that the inequality has been reduced to an extent. It may not be fully done, but to an extent. If today you will go to visit to a slum in cities of Odisha, then you can realize that what are the differences within the city, within the slums in Odisha and in a slum outside Odisha. And technology has played a very catalytic role in the entire process. because if we could have been done by manually, then we would have not been completed this more than it could have taken more than 4 decades. And second is that it's been accuracy, the information is accurate, and it's not having human bias. Because in land, whenever you involve the revenue people, you involve anyone, there is a biasness of the person. But here, because of technology, there is no biasness. And after all of this, the largest achievement is that because you see land, wherever land, you can Mahabharata, starting from Mahabharata to today, wherever it has been fought because of land. And you can see the land is the most complicated thing and also litigated. But we are happy and we are proud to say that not a single litigation has been came forward after giving 2.5 lakh people, 2.5 lakh households the land rights. And third important thing, which we have already been spoke in the previous sessions also, the collaboration and the convergence. Here, the government has not thought that we can do everything. They have tried that other partners can come in, those who have experiences, those who are knowledge partners, people can come and can also contribute into this. That's why this became very, very successful. And the most important learning for me for this last 7-8 years is that community knows the best and their judgment is accurate. And most of the times there is a problem on the land, then I go by the judgment of the people, and I found it is completely correct. Even if wherever the revenue officers are not been given the accurate information, the community has given the accurate information. And in most of the 99.9% of places I have seen, what community is saying, that is the right. So that's the somewhere we have to accept that, somewhere we have to see that community is the supreme authority for land and supreme authority for putting people on that how they themselves can get the benefit out of this. I think I'll close here. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shishir Bhai. For the participants, please continue asking your queries in the Q&A. I have also shared Shishir Bhai and Suchisnata's email without your consent, but please do reach out to them. That's a little means there's lots to learn about it, and visiting site and interacting with them will be surely valuable for everyone. We've learned a lot collaborating with the team, Shishir Bhai and others. So I encourage it very much. This also I want to bring to your notice that if you go back to the last webinar where Mr. Mathivathan gave an overview of the work that has happened in this field in the state, there was all of this was statutorily backed by the law itself. The Legislative Assembly of the state government passed a law which made all of this possible, actually guaranteed land rights, residential land rights to the slum population across the state. And these were the processes that came in operationalizing the law. The law itself was backed by 2 other rules, sets of rules that defined much of this in detail. It also, the very interesting part of this land exercise is that not only was it given to slum dwellers for their use on their name in the name of the household, the changes were also made in the registrar of lands, right? So this has become quite a complete 360 approach to land rights. It's not anymore just dependent on the regime of the day. It is an entitlement that has been properly and squarely transferred to the slums in Odisha, slum dwellers in Odisha. I'll now like to request another SDA member, Ms. Mamata Gouda from Godam Sahi in Bhubaneswar, to kindly make her intervention. Madam.
ମୁଁ ମମତା ମ୍ୟାଡାମ କୁ ରିକ୍ୱେଷ୍ଟ କରୁଛି ସେ ତାଙ୍କର ଏକ୍ସପିରିଏନ୍ସେସ୍ ଟିକେ ସେୟାର କରିବେ।
Her connection. Should we?
ମମତା ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ଆପଣ ଅଛନ୍ତି?
Maybe
sir,
a
we can ask-
connection. Yes.
Could be a connection issue. We can
Yes.
request other STA members.
Yes.
If
Yes.
Pankajini madam is there.
Yes. Ms. Pankajini Swain, SDA member from Jagannath Basti, Kimbhira Jagannath Basti, Bhubaneswar, if you can kindly make your intervention.
Pankajini madam, ଆପଣ ଏବେ କହିପାରିବେ kindly.
नमस्कार पंकजिनी स्वाई किम्भिरिया जगन्नाथ बस्ती बासिंदा अटे मु आज को प्राय 20 वर्ष है से बस्ती रे मो पिला स्वामी की नहीं रही आसुची एबे 2021 मसीह रे स्वामी मध्ये एक्सपायर कर जाइछथि कैंसर पेशेंट से थिले तार पर मो दी झियो को धरी सेठी एबे रहूची
The connection has frozen.
कौन सी प्रकार सुविधा भी नथिला रास्ता घाट रो सुविधा नथिला पानी रो सुविधा नथिला कि हमर पीबा पानी रो सुविधा नथिला यातायात किबा पिल्ला को पाठ पढिबा पई कि भी मेडिकल पई किछि सुविधा नथिला आमे तो सेठी अल्प किछि घर रहउतिलु भारी भय रे मध्ये रहउतिलु राति रे आमे इलेक्ट्रिक रो जो सुविधा नथिला लाइट रो सुविधा नथिला हम मध्ये लंठन लगे मध्ये सेठी चली रहउतिलु धीरे धीरे लोक माने सेठी रहिबा आरंभ कले आज को प्राय एबिका डेट रे हमर 500 परिवार सेठी रहिलानी तणु धीरे धीरे परिवर्तन मध्ये हम बस्तीर हेलानी जेते बेले हमर परवर्ती ये रे हमर जागा मिशन आसिले से मान जागा मिशन माध्यम रे हमर गोटे कमिटी गठन करा जायतिला से कमिटी माध्यम जो कमिटी हितला से कमिटी नाम होची एसडीए कमिटी हितला एसडीए कमिटी रे महिला मानकु अग्राधिकार दिया जायतिला 11 जन मेंबर थिले 11 जन मेंबर भितरु हमर 6 जन महिला थिले 5 जन पुरुष थिले एवं से चयन करा हैतला गोटे रिजोल्यूशन पास करा जायतिला तादर हमर कमिटी रो भलो मंद सब उपस्थापन बस्तीर भलो मंद सब उपस्थापन करा जायतिला कमिटी माध्यम रे से कमिटी द्वारा जगह मिशन माध्यम जो कमिटी हेतिला तार प्रेसिडेंट सेक्रेटरी ट्रेजरर एवं अलग मेंबर मध्य रहितिले 11 जन मेंबर रहितिले एई जगह मिशन आसीबा परे हमर प्रथम ड्रोन सर्वे करा जायतिला ड्रोन सर्वे रे एक नंबर घर आरंभ करी शेष घर लास्ट घर पर्यंत कोठी कोनोसी घर कि मझी घर कोनोसी घर मते चला जानथिला एवं ये ड्रोन सर्वे रे हम एसडीए रो प्रत्येक मेंबर माने सहयोग करथिले साहाय्य मध्य करथिले जेमति हमर कोनो बस्तीर कोनोसी परिवार किछि बाद न पड़ंतु समस्ते सेतिरे सहयोग करथिले प्रथम दिन रो शेष पर्यंत काम आरंभ करथिले या परे हमर गोटे उषा सर्वे ड्रोन सर्वे पर हमर गोटे उषा सर्वे कराइतिला डोर टू डोर एवं से उषा सर्वे रे प्रथमे हमर महिला मानक अग्राधिकार दिया हैतिला महिला मानक नै आग तांको ना निया जायतिला एवं से सर्वे भी कराइतिला प्रत्येक घर मध्ये सर्वे कराइतिला महिला मानक आगे मध्ये रखा जायतिला ए सर्वे परे हमको गोटे भूमि प्रमाण पत्र मध्ये मिलितिला या द्वारा मध्ये से भूमि प्रमाण पत्रटी हमर परिवार रे जे महिला अछंती तांको ना रे ही आसीतिला ଯେ ଭାରି ଖୁସି ଲାଗୁଥିଲା ମହିଳାମାନଙ୍କୁ ଯଦି କୌଣସି ସବୁଠି ପୁରୁଷ କୈନ୍ଦ୍ରିକ ସମାଜ ଥିଲାବେଳେ ଆମର ଏଠି ଯାହା ଗୋଟେ ମହିଳାମାନଙ୍କୁ ହିଁ ଆଗୁଆ ରଖାଯାଇଛି। ତାଙ୍କ ନାଁରେ ପଟା ରହିଛି, ତାଙ୍କ ନାଁରେ ଭାବିଲେ ସେ ଭାବିଲେ ଯେ ଆମ ନାଁରେ ଗୋଟେ, ଆମେ ଭାବିଲୁ ଆମ ନାଁରେ ଗୋଟେ ପଟା ଆସିଛି, ଆମେ ବହୁତ ଖୁସି ଥିଲୁ ସେଥିପାଇଁକି।
ଟିକେ ସୁଚି
ୟା
କହି
ପରେ
ଦିଅନ୍ତୁ ମ୍ୟାଡାମ, ଟିକେ ଟ୍ରାନ୍ସଲେଟ କରି ଦିଅନ୍ତୁ।
Yeah. Madam, we will take translate kar dochi. I'll summarize what Madam mentioned. Pankajini Madam mentioned that she has been staying at Kimbiria Jagannath Basti since more than 20 years. She was staying with her husband and 2 kids. Unfortunately, she lost her husband in 2021 to cancer. And after that, she has been taking care of her kids on an individual scale. So Kimbiria Basti has more than 500 families, and the way how Srinivas sir mentioned, even Pankajini ma'am was sharing that the settlement also had basic facilities, lack of basic facilities, and they were facing with trouble. But after that Jaga mission, she had 2 more add-ons to what Srinivas sir had mentioned is, while the STA formed, the STA was categorically encouraging the women to be a part of the whole executive body. Kimbiria Basti STA has 6 female members and 5 male members, and the female members have been very prompt and very active in all the decision making and participation. This is one. And second is, these STA members have actually contributed during the Usha survey or the household survey for land rights initiative, where they have kind of brought in the female household member as the primary applicant, due to which the land rights certificate has been given in the name of the female as the primary owner or applicant. And this has been something which is transformational, is what Pankajini Madam is sharing, because the female who otherwise did not had a voice is owing a piece of land rights certificate to her name. So this has been very encouraging for the community, is what Pankajini Madam has said. Pankajini Madam, ebe au request korchi continue kariyako.
ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ପ୍ରଥମେ ରହୁଥିଲୁ, ଆମର ପିଲାମାନେ ପାଠ ପଢ଼ିବା ପାଇଁ ଯିବା ଆସିବା ପାଇଁ ସୁବିଧା ହେଉନଥିଲା। ରାସ୍ତାର ତ ଯୋଗାଯୋଗର ପରିଚୟ ନଥିଲା। ହସ୍ପିଟାଲରୁ ଆମ୍ବୁଲାନ୍ସ, ଗୋଟେ ଯାହା ଦେହ ଖରାପ ହେଲେ ଆମ୍ବୁଲାନ୍ସ ବି ଆସୁନଥିଲା, ଯେମିତିକି ଯାତାୟାତ ରାସ୍ତାଘାଟର ସୁବିଧା ନଥିଲା, କି ଆମର ବସ୍ତିରେ କୌଣସି ଉନ୍ନତିମୂଳକ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ ମଧ୍ୟ ହେଇପାରୁନଥିଲା। ଛୋଟ ଛୋଟ ପିଲାମାନେ ଦୂର ବାଟକୁ ସ୍କୁଲକୁ ଯାଇପାରୁନଥିଲେ। ସେମାନେ 5 ବର୍ଷ ପରେ ମୁଁ ତାଙ୍କୁ ନେଇକି ଛାଡ଼ିବା ପାଇଁ ଅସୁବିଧା ବି ହେଉଥିଲା। ଆଣ୍ଠିଏ ଲେଖା କାଦୁଅରେ ଆମେ ସେ ଜାଗାରେ ଯିବା ଆସିବା କରୁଥିଲୁ। ପିଇବା ପାଣିର ସୁବିଧା ନଥିଲା, ଆମେ ପାଣିବା ପାଇଁ 2 କିଲୋମିଟର ଆଣିବା ପାଇଁ ମଧ୍ୟ ପାଣି ଯାଉଥିଲୁ। ତା ସହିତ ଆମର ଯେତେବେଳେ ବନ୍ୟା ବାତ୍ୟା, ଆମର ତ ସବୁବେଳେ ବର୍ଷ 12 ମାସ ବନ୍ୟା ବାତ୍ୟା ହେଉଛି, ବର୍ଷା ହେଉଛି, ସେ ଜାଗାରେ ପାଣି ଜମିକି ରହୁଥିଲା, ଆଉ ପାଣିର ନିଷ୍କାସନ ପାଇଁ କୌଣସି ପ୍ରକାର ମଧ୍ୟ ସୁବିଧା ନଥିଲା। ଯେତେବେଳେ ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ଆସିଲା, ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଭୂମି ପ୍ରମାଣପତ୍ର ପାଇଲୁ, ତାପରେ ଆମ ବସ୍ତିରେ ରାସ୍ତାଘାଟର ସୁବିଧା କରାହେଇଛି, ଫ୍ଲେଭର ପଡ଼ିଛି, ପିଇବା ପାଣିର ସୁବିଧା କରାହେଇଛି, 24 ଘଣ୍ଟିଆ ପାଣିର ଯୋଗାଯୋଗ କରାହେଇଛି, ଡ୍ରେନେଜର ସୁବିଧା କରାହେଇଛି, ଆଲୋକୀକରଣ କରାହେଇଛି। ଯେଉଁଠିକି ଆମେ ଅନ୍ଧାରେ ରହୁଥିଲୁ, ରାତିରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆମକୁ ଡର ଲାଗୁଥିଲା ଯେ ଆମେ କିପରି ରହିବୁ ବୋଲି, ଯେହେତୁ ଲାଇଟ୍ ଫାଇଟ୍ର ସୁବିଧା ନାହିଁ। ରାତିରେ ଆଉ କିରୋସିନ କେତେ ଇଏ କରିବୁ, ଲଣ୍ଠନ ଲାଗି ଯାଉଥିଲୁ, ରାତିରେ ଲିଭଉଥିଲୁ, ଏବଂ ରାତିରେ ପଦାକୁ ବାହାରିବା ପାଇଁ ବେଶୀ ମହିଳାମାନଙ୍କ ପ୍ରତି ଅସୁବିଧା ହେଉଥିଲା। କିଛି ନା କ'ଣ ଅସୁବିଧା ହେବ କି କ'ଣ ହେବ, ଏ ମଧ୍ୟ ଡର ଲାଗୁଥିଲା। ଏବଂ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଲାଇଟ୍ ମଧ୍ୟ ସୁବିଧା ହେଲା, ଆଲୋକୀକରଣ ଆମ ବସ୍ତିରେ ହେଲା, ରାସ୍ତା ହେଲା, ଡ୍ରେନ୍ ହେଲା, ପାଣିର ସୁବିଧା ହେଲା, ଏବଂ ଆମ ବସ୍ତିରେ ବେଶ କରି ଗୋଟେ ଅଙ୍ଗନବାଡ଼ି କେନ୍ଦ୍ର ମଧ୍ୟ ଖୋଲିଲା, ଯାହାଦ୍ୱାରା କି ଆମର ସେଠି ପିଲାମାନେ ଟୀକାକରଣ ହେଇପାରିଲେ। ମମତା ଦିବସ ଗୋଟେ ଆମ ଯେଉଁ ଗର୍ଭବତୀ ମାଆମାନଙ୍କୁ ସୁବିଧା ମଧ୍ୟ ପାଇପାରିଲେ, ସେମାନେ କିଶୋରୀ ବାଳିକାମାନଙ୍କୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ସୁବିଧା ପାଇପାରିଲେ। ଆଉ ପିଲାମାନେ ଅଙ୍ଗନବାଡ଼ି ସେଣ୍ଟରକୁ ଯାଇ ଆମର ଯେଉଁ ପାଠ ପଢ଼ିବା, 5 ବର୍ଷ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ପାଠ ପଢ଼ିବା, ସେତକ ମଧ୍ୟ ଜାଣିଲେ। ତା ସହିତ ଆମ ବସ୍ତିରେ ଗୋଟେ ପରିଚୟ ଗୃହ ମଧ୍ୟ ହେଇଛି, ଓପନ୍ ସ୍ପେସ୍ ଗୋଟେ ହେଇଛି, ମନ୍ଦିର ମଧ୍ୟ କରାଯାଇଛି। ତା ସହିତ ଆମର ଗୋଟେ ପାର୍କ ତିଆରି ହେଇଛି, ପିଲାମାନେ ଛୋଟ ପିଲାମାନେ ଖେଳିବା ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ ପାର୍କ ମଧ୍ୟ ହେଇଛି। ମାନେ ବହୁତ ଖୁସିର କଥା। ଜାଗା ମିଶନକୁ ବହୁତ ବହୁତ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଯେ ଆମେ ଏସବୁର ସୁବିଧା ମଧ୍ୟ ପାଇପାରୁଛୁ। ପ୍ରତ୍ୟେକ ପରିବାର କୌଣସି ପର୍ବପର୍ବାଣି ପାଳିଲେ କିମ୍ବା ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ କାହାର ଗୋଟେ ଜନ୍ମଦିନ କରିବାକୁ ହେଲେ, ଯେହେତୁ ଆମର ବସ୍ତିରେ ଛୋଟ ଛୋଟ ଘର ସବୁ ରହିଛି, ଆମେ ସେଇ ପରିଚୟ ଗୃହରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ପାଳନ କରୁଛୁ। ତା ସହିତ ଆମର କୁମାର ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣିମା ହେଉ କିମ୍ବା ରଜର ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରୋଗ୍ରାମ ହଉ ଆମେ ସେଇ ଘରେ ଏବଂ ଓପନ୍ ସ୍ପେସ୍ ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ ସେଠି ଆମେ ମଧ୍ୟ ପାଳନ କରୁଛୁ। ତା ସହିତ ପିଲାମାନେ ଖେଳୁଛନ୍ତି, ପାର୍କ ଗୋଟେ ହେଇଛି ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଯୋଉ ଆମର ଲାଗିଛି ମାନେ ଦୋଳି ଲାଗିଛି ଝୁଲିବା ପାଇଁ, ଖେଳିବା ପାଇଁ ବହୁତ ପ୍ରକାର ସୁବିଧା ହେଇଛି। ଆମେ ସେ ଆଉ
ମ୍ୟାଡାମ
ମଧ୍ୟ
ଟିକେ ସେ କହିଦିଅନ୍ତୁ।
Yeah, madam, would take translate kar do chi. So Pankajini madam now shares that after the land rights certificate, there has been significant development in the slum area in totality. So she starts with mentioning how the children of the slum were facing difficulty in kind of commuting to the schools because most of the time the settlement would be waterlogged because Odisha as a state is prone to a lot of cyclones and flooded areas. So they were facing these difficulties perennially. This is one. Second, the paver block roads which has been placed has been very helpful for particularly the children to kind of regularize and go to schools regularly. She also mentioned that the water connection is now 24/7. Earlier, they used to kind of go to 2 kilometers to fetch water, which is not the issue right now. And then she also mentioned that there has been many development of spaces like the open space areas. There has been a Parichaya Gruha, which is a community center where they hold their functions and their festivals now. And one significant point that she mentioned is there has been an Anganwadi, which is now there in their slum, which has made easier for vaccination of children and then services to the pregnant women and the girl child. So these are the things that has actually transformed to where they were earlier residing and being they were living on. So this is what Pankajini madam has to share. Thank you, madam.
ତାପରେ ଆମ ପିଲାମାନେ ସ୍କୁଲକୁ ଏବେ ଯିବା ଆସିବା କରିପାରୁଛନ୍ତି ଠିକ୍ରେ, କି ଆମ ବସ୍ତିର କାହାର ଦେହ ଖରାପ ହେଲେ ଆମ୍ବୁଲାନ୍ସ ଆମ ବସ୍ତିରେ ଆସି ପହଞ୍ଚି ପାରୁଛି। ଆମର ସବୁ ପ୍ରକାର ଉନ୍ନତି, ଯାହାକି କଲୋନୀର ଲୋକମାନେ ଯୋଉକୁ ଆମ ନିଜ ଦୃଷ୍ଟିରେ ଦେଖୁଥିଲେ ବସ୍ତିରେ ଆମେ ରହୁଛୁ ବୋଲିକି, ତେଣୁ ଆଉ ସେଇଟା ବୋଧେ ଭାବୁଛି ସେମାନଙ୍କ ଦୃଷ୍ଟିରେ ନଥିବ କି ଆମେ ବି ମଧ୍ୟ ଗୋଟେ ଭଲ କଲୋନୀ ହିସାବରେ ରହୁଛୁ। ଯେପରିକି କଲୋନୀରେ ଲୋକମାନେ ରହୁଛନ୍ତି ଆମେ ବି ସେମିତି ରହୁଛୁ। ଆମ ପିଲାମାନେ ପାଠ ପଢ଼ିଲାଣି, ଆମ ପିଲାମାନେ ଏଜୁକେଟେଡ୍ ହେଲାଣି, କି ଆମେ ବସ୍ତିର ପ୍ରତ୍ୟେକ ପ୍ରକାର ସୁବିଧାରେ ଆମେ ପାଇପାରୁଛୁ। ପ୍ରଥମରେ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଜାଗାର ପ୍ରମାଣପତ୍ର ଗୋଟେ ପାଇଗଲୁ, ଆମେ ଭାବିଲୁ ଯେ ଆମକୁ ଆଉ ଏଇଠି କେହି ଆମେ ଏଇଠୁ କୁଆଡ଼େ ଯାଇପାରିବୁ ନାହିଁ, କି ଆମେ ଯେଉଁ ଭୟ ଥିଲା ଆମକୁ ଏଇଠୁ ଉଠେଇ ଦେବେ, ଆମେ କୁଆଡ଼େ ଆମେ ଏଇଠୁ ଘର ଭାଙ୍ଗିଦେବୁ, ଯେହେତୁ ସେ ସବୁର ଗୋଟେ ଭୟ ଥିଲା, ସେ ସବୁର ଭୟ ନାହିଁ। ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଆମ ବସ୍ତି ବାସିନ୍ଦା ବହୁତ ଖୁସି ଅଛନ୍ତି। ମୁଁ ମଧ୍ୟ ଏତେ ଖୁସି ଯେ ଯାହାକି ମୋ ସ୍ୱାମୀ ନାହାନ୍ତି, କିନ୍ତୁ ମୋ ଦିଟା ଝିଅଙ୍କୁ ଧରି ମୁଁ ସେଠି ରହୁଛି। ମୋର ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରମାଣ ମିଳିଲେ ମୋର ନିଜସ୍ୱ ଗୋଟେ ପରିଚୟ ସୃଷ୍ଟି ହେଇଛି ଯେ ମୋର ଗୋଟେ ଅଛି ଏ ଜାଗାରେ, ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର ଭଳିଆ ଜାଗାରେ ମୋର ଗୋଟେ ଭୂମିର ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରମାଣପତ୍ର ଅଛି। ଏସବୁର ସୁବିଧା ହେଇଛି। ଆମ ବସ୍ତିରେ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର କ୍ୟାମ୍ପ କରାହେଉଛି, ହେଲ୍ଥ କ୍ୟାମ୍ପ କରାହେଉଛି, ଯେପରି ଡେଙ୍ଗୁ, ଡାଇରିଆ କି ମ୍ୟାଲେରିଆ ଏସବୁ କିଛି ନ ହଉ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ହେଉଛି ଆମ ବସ୍ତି ବାସିନ୍ଦା ସମସ୍ତେ ସତର୍କ ଏବଂ ସଚେତନ ଅଛନ୍ତି। ତା ସହିତ ଆମ ବସ୍ତିରେ ବୃକ୍ଷରୋପଣ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକ୍ରମ କରାହେଉଛି, ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକ୍ରମ ଆମ ବସ୍ତିରେ ମଧ୍ୟ କରାଯାଉଛି। ଆମେ ବହୁତ ଖୁସି ଅଛୁ ଯେ ଏସବୁ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ପାଇଁ ଆଉ ଜାଗା ମିଶନକୁ ଅଶେଷ ଅଶେଷ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଯେ ଆମେ ସେ ଖୁସିଟା ମଧ୍ୟ ମ୍ୟାଡ଼ାମ୍ ମୋତେ କହିପାରୁନାହିଁ ଯେ ଆମେ ମୁଁ ଏକା ଖୁସି ନାହିଁ, ଆମ ଟୋଟାଲ 500 ପରିବାର ସମସ୍ତେ ଖୁସିରେ ଅଛନ୍ତି, ଯାହାକି ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ମାନେ କହିବି କ'ଣ କେମିତି କହିବି ମୁଁ ଜାଣିପାରୁନାହିଁ। ତଥାପି ଆମେ କିପରି ସୁନ୍ଦର ଜୀବନଯାପନଟେ କରୁଛୁ ଆଉ ସେଠି ରହିଛୁ, ସେଇଟା ହିଁ ମୋଟେ ଆମ ପାଇଁ ବଡ଼ କଥା। ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ କଥା ହେଲା, ଏବେ ଯେଉଁ ଆମର ଭୂମି ପ୍ରମାଣପତ୍ରକୁ ନେଇକି ପ୍ରଧାନମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଆମେ ଯେଉଁ ରହୁଥିଲୁ ଆଜବେଷ୍ଟ ଘରେ କି ଟିଣ ଘରେ ରହୁଥିଲୁ, କି ଆମର ମୁଣ୍ଡ ଉପରେ ଗୋଟେ ଛାତ ଘର ରହିବ, ଆମକୁ ଶୌଚାଳୟ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ମଧ୍ୟ କରାଯାଇଛି। ତେଣୁ ସେଇଟାକୁ ଆମେ ଆହୁରି ଖୁସି ରହିଛୁ, ଯେମିତି ଆମ ମୁଣ୍ଡରେ ଗୋଟେ ଛାତ ଘର ରହିବ। ଆମେ ପ୍ରଧାନମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଆବାସ ଯୋଜନାରେ ଆମର ଡକୁମେଣ୍ଟ ସବୁ ନେଇଛନ୍ତି, ସର୍ଭେ କରିଛନ୍ତି, ସେଇଟା ଶୀଘ୍ର ବୋଧେ ମିଳିଗଲେ ଆମେ ଆହୁରି ଖୁସି ହେବୁ, ଆହୁରି ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦେବୁ ଜାଗା ମିଶନକୁ, ଯାହାଦ୍ୱାରା କି ଆମର ଏତେ ବଡ଼ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ହେଇଛି ଏବଂ ଆମ ବସ୍ତି ବାସିନ୍ଦା ମାନେ ବହୁତ ଖୁସିରେ ଅଛନ୍ତି। ଆଉ କ'ଣ କହିବି, ଆଉ ତ କିଛି ସେ
Thank you so
ଖୁସିଟାକୁ
much,
ତ
madam.
ଆପଣଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ କିଛି ମୁଁ କହିପାରୁନି, କେମିତି ସେଇଟା କହିବି ଆପଣ ଜାଣିପାରୁଥିବେ। ତେଣୁ ଆମେ बहुत बहुत खुशी अच्छे धन्यवाद आम किम्बिरिया जगन्नाथ बस्तीर समस्त मेम्बर तरफ समस्त परिवार तरफ मो तरफ वार्ड नंबर 18 प्रत्येक से जो आम रही समस्त तरफ धन्यवाद जगह मिशन को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद नमस्कार
थैंक यू सो मच मैम मैम आपणकर स्माइलिंग फेस आउ पछपटे जेतिकी मेंबर्स बसचंदी तांको स्माइलिंग फेस देखिकी आमे जानि पारुछि आपणकर मन कथा so we translate kar debi I'll now translate what madam had to say so she mentioned two things at the end one is that she feels proud now that she doesn't have to say that she's staying in any slum. Now they are kind of saying that they are living in a colony and they are proud of it, not only her, but 500 families which are there. Second is even after losing her husband, she still feels safe in the settlement that she is in. And the various other things like the Anganwadi and the community spaces that has been developed has been quite transformational and helpful to the whole of the communities. And she is thankful to the initiative of Jaga Mission that has brought change to their lives. Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much, Pankajini, madam, and Suchisnata. Suchisnata, you should translate what you commented to her too. So why don't we hear that?
So I just mentioned she was explaining that she's short of words of how grateful, happy, and joyful the whole of the communities are. So to which I said, your smiles and the members who are sitting at the back, the smile of theirs are enough validation that yes, the happiness is reflecting, sir.
I'm sure all the participants share that thought, Suchitna. Also, means in addition, we would all like to visit her and Srinibas Mallik's colony at some stage. So do let her know that too. But I'll now transfer it back to you, Suchisnata. You've been a core member of the team driving this process with Shishir Dash right from day one. We are delighted that you are here and that you will be joined by Rahul Dev Brahmachari, and you will talk about other aspects about making land rights happen in Odisha's cities. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. I have a very small presentation that I'll share now. Yeah, is my presentation visible?
Yes, it is. It's not on, now it's on full screen. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would be kind of taking through how did the formation of the Slum Dweller Association or the SDAs happened and were essential to the part of the land rights initiative. So I'll be narrating on that, followed by Rahul would be helping us to explain what were the capacity building and the insights and challenges that we faced during this strengthening of the various stakeholders. So before starting, it's important to understand what is basically this Slum Dweller Association is all about, because we had members from our SDAs presenting about how they formed SDAs and then they discussed, they had meetings and all of these things. But to take the initiative forward, we had a Slum Dweller Association which was primarily kind of defined or thought of as a community level institution, which was essential to be formed at each of the slum settlements so that they could help us to facilitate the land rights allocation and also the various slum development processes. It also kind of helped forming as a platform where the communities, the residents, everyone could come and discuss about the local governance, development of their communities' welfare, and all of their plannings and aspirations. So SDAs also kind of functioned at a primary point of contact between the communities and the local bodies and the government. So that was the idea why the SDA was formed. But I'll take a little backward and also share why was SDA felt as an essentiality or the need. So it was realized that the slum initiative, the land rights initiative, or Jaga Mission as an initiative is just not possible to be any other scheme where we would go and then we would let know about the scheme and people would kind of start linking it. It wasn't so. So for Jaga Mission, it was realized that there has to be a body which has to kind of put up the voices of the community of what has been the need of the communities, what has been the deprivations in the communities. All of these things has to be brought from the communities themselves. So hence, there was a need for a certain platform. Then there was also need for a trusted entity where the communities can come up and believe is that something is happening, because there has been history of lot many broken promises from governments and from entities, for which people were a little skeptical whether this is any other scheme or this is a scheme that could make a difference. So that was another need why the STA was felt as an essentiality. And then there was also a need that an entity should be there which would recognize who are the real slum dwellers. Because as Shishir sir mentioned in his address, that we never had any kind of backup of what was a slum, what was a kind of a data relating to a slum. All of those things were missing. So there has to be a point which could validate who were the slum residents. Are they the real residents, or they were just there were also instances where people would understand that Jaga Mission or a scheme has come and they would just come into the slum and claim themselves as slum residents. So these were some of the complexities for which the need was felt that an entity should be formed which would validate all of these things. Then there was also a need that the STAs or the entity should validate what are the slum boundaries, which is the first house to go, which is the last house to go, understanding that slums are mostly very unstructured in nature and scattered in nature. So then an entity was also essential to kind of help us demarcate what could be the slum stretch. Then the entity was also essential to allow those insights and ground realities, characteristics of the settlements, to understand what would be the best fitment, how do we approach a particular settlement, how do we connect with the people there, all of these things for which the entity was very essential. And then having said that, there were also a lot of complexities, conflicts, which were internal to the settlements, for which a body was required to understand what was the real conflicts and could a solution be kind of designed to address those conflicts. And most importantly, understanding that the Jaga Mission had an ethos of a participatory approach where people had to be there for each of the stages, actions, activities, and decision-making steps under the initiative. So these were few of the pointers on which the need for a slum dweller association was realized, and hence from the very beginning of the whole of the initiative, the STAs were encouraged and they were formed. I'll just run through what was the STA, how was it formed, and what could be the constitution. I mean, just bringing on people, maybe there were slums which had 20 households and there were slums which had more than 500 to 1,000 households. So how do we kind of structure a slum dweller association? So to which under the program, it was decided and it was proposed that every slum should have at least one STA. So there has to be one STA per slum. And then there has to be a general body of the slum dweller association, which comprises of representation or membership of one adult from each of the household, which is above 18 years of age. Now, the general body selects the executive body, which would be constituting almost like 11 members or 13 members or 15 members based on the size of the slum. Now, the executive members or the executive body would further select the president, secretary, and the treasurer, who would be kind of, the treasurer would be taking care of all the financial and the administrative decisions and works. Similarly, president and secretary would be sharing the work. In addition to that, just formation of an STA was not enough. So how do we kind of function that STA, for which the STA quorum was decided and and where should they hold their meetings? How should they hold their meetings? There's a very interesting thing that we followed, which was actually helpful, is that we also decided that the sitting arrangements should also be decided while the STA meeting holds. For example, everybody should be kind of a circular or sitting on the ground together. There should not be anything, half of them sitting on a chair or half of them sitting on the ground, nothing like that. So it has to be an inclusive and where people could see each other's face, where women could be allowed to sit and they should be kind of participating and voicing their opinions, all of these things. So these were few of the disciplines that were mentioned, that were undertaken when we started holding STA meetings with the communities and started orienting them. Then we also kind of went back and opened STA bank account and oriented how should a bank account operate, what are the accounts that should be maintained, and how the bookkeeping things should be maintained. And most importantly, how an STA should write down on the resolution what were the discussions happening about their communities, about the development works that they wanted to take, and how do they kind of delegate it. Supposedly there are 8 tasks, so who would be doing what tasks? These are the things that were started kind of orienting to the STAs. Most importantly, what was decided was every implementation activity should be and can be taken up with the consent of the STA. So this was the primary basic hygiene of the Slum Dweller Association that were formed. But then in addition to that, it was also realized that just writing down an SOP or a guideline for an STA wasn't enough. So intense capacity building, intense orientation, and intense engagement with the communities was also an essentiality. For that, there were not many modules, design capacity modules were developed and orientation were given to the STAs. But primarily, if I have to divide that, what were the key trainings or the key capacities that were given to the STAs were, most importantly, when we started connecting with the people, the STA members were oriented on the Act, the Land Rights Act, which Shubhagato sir mentioned, and also the rules and the few questions FAQ were shared with them, because it was felt that every STA member should understand who is a slum resident, how much can a slum resident receive as a land rights certificate, since how long that slum resident should be staying there. All of those eligibility criteria, all of those land criteria, every slum STA member should be knowing that. And then it became easier for the other complexities that were arising. For example, there were many miscommunication which were happening. So all of these orientation helped in kind of checking those miscommunications into the processes. Then it was also realized that how do we not only orient the STA members on the information set, but also defining the roles and responsibilities of the STAs, and also building up an accountability trend in the STAs, for which there were roles defined, and then each of the STA members were oriented on that. For example, it was kind of mandated that for every step or every process under the land rights certificate, the STA member had to be present. At least 1 or 2 STA members had to be present for every processes that were happening in their settlements. And at the end of each step, a resolution has to be passed by the STA that yes, this step has happened, and this step has happened, ensuring that all the households are covered. So these were few of the, again, hygiene that were maintained into the processes. Then another interesting orientation that happened was because this land right initiative had also adopted the technology which Mathi sir had mentioned during his addressal, that drone imagery and the superimpose or the integration into cadastral information was done, which has been a kind of a landmark or turning point to the initiative. It was also essential to kind of orient the STA members to read out the ortho images or the satellite images so that they understand what is the positioning of their settlement, which household were situated where, and if each of the household has been properly surveyed or not. So then the STAs were capacitized on understanding and reading the ortho images also. And then, as I already mentioned, there were a few conflict management tips or ways or means that were shared with the STAs. And every time there was a conflict and or maybe there was an issue, it was immediately kind of addressed during the recurring STA meetings that were practiced. And then, as I mentioned, how can we draft minutes of a meeting so that we understand what are the agenda that we take up in a next meeting? Are there any open action points that we can take up, or any follow-ups that has to be done? All of these things were taken up in detail. One most interesting thing that has been a turning point to this Jaga Mission initiative in the land rights segment particularly has been a vulnerability mapping exercise that the slum dweller associations undertook, which is like each of the STA had to understand and identify how many households in a particular settlements were vulnerable in nature and clearly identify them. You can see in the picture that a lady is identifying a particular household which is vulnerable in nature through a kind of a mural art exercise that they have done. This not only kind of created a sense of empathy within the community, but it also brought up a sense that the STAs are also equally accountable to ensure that the most needed, the most marginalized households are covered for every processes in the land rights initiative. And then this vulnerability mapping exercises that we did actually indicated that more than 60% of the slum residents are falling into the category of vulnerability, and more than 78% of the people were actually not linked to many of the social welfare schemes. And most interestingly, our experience during the land rights initiative have taking up this vulnerability mapping has actually given us a direction to the ongoing Sahajog initiative, which the government has taken up, wherein the community is now focused in identifying such households which have not been linked to the social welfare schemes and are putting on efforts to link them during under this Sahajog initiative that the current government has taken up. So these are few of the vulnerable category of households that were covered by the community. They understood what were the meaning of these vulnerabilities, and then they started mapping that. Then another point of the STA nurturing has been understanding that the Jaga Mission had a large scale to be catered to and within a very, very timeline bound approach. So which was not possible even if it would have been taken up by the government officials themselves or by even bringing partners into the play. It would just not have been possible if the STA leaders or STA would have not been a critical stakeholder in the whole of the processes. For which it was realized that what if it could be identified who are those leaders from the community themselves who could be a part of the whole of the processes and also be a very important outreach facilitator, for which during the STA formation, such individuals or such community leaders were identified. And the observation or the insights is that these community members have been very, very instrumental in not only addressing the internal conflicts which were there, but also addressing issues wherein there are issues where vested interests, where outsiders coming into the slum, and then there were also issues where, because land has been a very sensitive matter, there were also issues that the people or the so-called local mafia playing a very vested game into the land rights initiative, wherein these local leaders played a very important role in minimizing all of those conflicts which were cropping up. This was one aspect. And the second aspect was that when we started, as I mentioned, the slums had a very, very particular characteristic each of the slum have, where we deal with settlements where people, well, the whole of the community would have never gone to school. There are slums where people do not have do not understand how to operate a mobile phone. They do not know how to read an ortho image. They do not even know of what a Google map is all about. So how do we kind of reach out to those particular settlements? So these local leaders have been very, very instrumental in not only bringing a change to their own settlement, but because those physical changes and the word of the mouth dissemination of information has passed on from these leaders, this has helped in transforming those difficult slums which were otherwise not being able to cater to under the Jaga mission. So this has been the kind of a turning point when we created these mentorship cadres and these master trainer models. And most importantly, as I mentioned, there was one point which Shishir sir mentioned is that there has been no litigation to the land rights, considering that land itself is the most complex element in the entire universe. This has been possible because of one of the key things, again, slum dweller associations. So slum dweller association have been a very core participatory role in the grievance redressal mechanism that was developed, wherein all the concerns of the communities during the land rights which were raised, the slum dweller associations were oriented that they should facilitate all of those concerns and help the families to kind of apply the grievances in the local bodies, which they did. And they had also participated with the urban local bodies in holding public hearings in the communities or in the settlements, and then so that each of the grievances is taken up by the urban local bodies. So this has been something which again created that trust factor amongst the households that this is just not a scheme, but it's a scheme which is allowing or which is hearing to the voices of the people, and not only hearing, but it is also addressing the voices of the people. One most notable thing that was also taken under the Jaga Mission Land Rights Initiative was the Slum Dweller Association were member to the decision-making entities on land rights. So there is this Slum Development and Rehabilitation Committee, and there is a scrutiny subcommittee, which are responsible to evaluate and take a decision on the land rights grants to the beneficiaries. And STA members are one of the members to these decision-making bodies. So hence the whole process of transparency into the whole of the mechanism has been ensured. So these have been kind of the interventions that has been put in detail to nurture the Slum Dweller Association, which has been considered as probably one of the most important stakeholders to the whole of the initiative, and for which whatever success the initiative has achieved has to also be attributed to the Slum Dweller Association. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Sahoo. There's been a request that if we can, before Rahul, if Adreeja Deka, you could come in. She has been a Jaga fellow and is an architect who has worked closely with the communities. Adreeja, over to you, and then maybe Rahul can come in. Thank you.
My screen.
Not yet. We only see you. Are you sharing a presentation? It was very good to hear from you, Ma'am Sahoo, about all the processes that underlie making participation work in government programs, the amount of detailed thinking that needs to go in.
Presentation and this
Sorry, Adreeja, we couldn't hear you.
Suchi, ma'am, please upload the
Okay, I'm doing that.
Adreeja, can you just briefly tell if the presentation is not working? Okay, yeah.
It's come.
So I worked in Jaga Mission as a Jaga Fellow. Jaga Fellowship was a program of around 1.5 years that ran through the initial part of the project. And Jaga Fellows were hired from various backgrounds, from management, social science, architects, engineering. It was a very it's a diverse mix, and mostly freshers and people with 1 or 2 years of experience. So when we came to Jaga Mission, our initial expectation was that we will be given an assignment, we will complete those in deadlines, and we will get our paycheck. But once we entered the project, we realized that this is not a typical government scheme where we will be delivering things. This scheme turned out to be something which is alive and it is evolving. The job was a complete volatile aspect, and it was we realized that we are at the center of a community participation and governance project. It was not something that was already pre-planned or programmed for us. So it was a completely new experience. None of the developers was prepared for this, but it grabbed our attention in the initial week of the project itself. And next slide, please. And I worked in Java Mission as an architect. I am an practicing architect now, and being a part of this project is an eye-opening aspect for me because when I entered the slum, what I saw was that every inch mattered. When a slum dweller is living in his house, his kitchen, his dining space, his living area is the veranda and part of the street most of the time. It is not a designed space, it is not a designated space. The weather decides how they are going to live. So understanding this difference is a very big opportunity as well as a realization because this is what I studied this course for. This is where there is justice for my education. And of course, when we have other clients, everyone has space, everyone has money, and we design for them. It is quite objective. But here, the funds, the space, everything is limited. So it is not just thinking outside the box, but it is thinking for somebody's dignity. It is an empowering opportunity. Next slide, please. On-ground experience, like Suchina also mentioned, that there is a vision mapping exercise. That vision mapping exercise, we go to the slums, sometimes after the SDA is formed, sometimes even before the SDA is formed. So there we discuss, we ask the people to come up for the meeting and to discuss like how do they envision their slums in the future when it is developed. So while asking for that, we don't just, it is not a pen and paper exercise. Actually, we open a flat sheet. We show them that this is the boundary of your slum. How do you see what the future of the slum? So before this exercise is done, if we ask any slum dweller to come and meet us or sit for a meeting, no one is hardly people are interested and everyone has a very confused and uh, hesitation to come for the discussion. But during this discussion, they stop seeing us as strangers. They once they begin opening up about what they want, where they want to have their houses, where are the streets, which place is going to be used for what, who is going to be their neighbors, the complete aura of the project is changed. And that is where I see the biggest pivot of this project because that is the slum dwellers own this entire concept as theirs. Next slide. Yes, there are some gaps which I feel that have been a part of this project. While this is a social sector project, implementation part was land and infrastructure on land. And execution of these infrastructure is through government and municipal capacities in most cases. So this is a very slow process. And in a fellowship program where we are there for just 1.5 years, the on-ground experience and time period gets limited. Once it is limited, we get stuck to brainstorming and data management. But the real project is happening on ground. So the pace has a restriction. That has been a gap that in 1.5 years maybe we could have done a lot more if we had some mechanism to go forward. Next slide. As an architect, when I left the project after coming out, I started to rethink through the project, like the scale of the number of slums as well as scale of an individual slum. Now, so I really acknowledge that a lot of civic amenities are being provided to the slum after I have exited the project. But yes, roads are made, there are water supply connections, there are drains. But in majority of the slums, the roads are not 1 or 2 meters wide. Those are hardly 2.5 feet, and that is not a livable condition. So for these, I believe each plan, even though each slum, even though in situ development requires a master plan where they have a layout in which they can have facilities like rest of the city. Like SCM member mentioned that if you're part of the community, when they have different roads which they see are in other places, these things can happen once we have master plans for in situ development as well. These services also can be very well maintained for a very long time if there is some level of organization in the implementation. And yes, one prior to this, I believe the slum list, which is currently there, is a challenge because there are slums. This is a government list. There are slums which have lost their slum characteristics. They are revenue villages, or they have complete concrete structures have come up. Because of these concrete structures, interventions are difficult. Giving them land rights, adhering to the area, square meters that is permissible, these are difficult. And as an architect, I believe that if we could show the slum dwellers a physical model where the houses can be moved, the roads can be arranged in front of them, then they would know which house we are talking about relocating and for which reason. And they would see the benefit that if two houses are moved, they get a wider road through which actually an ambulance can enter. Even if we are not talking about ambulances, sewage collection vehicles are required at least 30 meters. The last household of the slum, we need an access to this service. So I believe a plan coming up requires a physical model where the slum dwellers can see what is going to happen, not just know about it. And once they agree with this 3D model, a finalized master plan for the slum is to be developed, and this can be integrated. This will be definitely a community opinion integrated design. Further, after having a concrete plan of the slums, having a master plan will allow, finalizing master plan will allow collection of housing schemes and infrastructure initiatives. And if these are implemented in a phase-wise manner, the requirement of manpower, the requirement of funds would be a different set. And if we consider the entire set of almost 3,000 slums, the calculation for the infrastructure and housing fund requirement would be so high. The manpower requirement is so high. At the same time, going about the project in phases and stages would allow to have a set of successful executions. These executions would actually show us the bottlenecks and course correction that is needed, and also other slums would have some example to see. So that is how I would like to conclude.
Thank you very much for your thoughts, Adreeja. It's good to hear from your field experience. As was discussed, and is being discussed in the chat, do have a look at it. There is a model in Thailand, Kodi, that you should definitely study. There are very interesting opportunities as well as risks to that, and involving the slum dwellers in the architect's planning is the critical process, and how you develop that process is the key to many of your thoughts. But we'll like to move on to Rahul Dev at this stage. Rahul, we are slightly behind time, so if you can make it quick, we'd like to take a few discussion points.
Yes, sir. Just
Rahul, your
yeah.
PowerPoint is not showing yet. We are still seeing your what's it called? Explorer.
The desktop we are seeing, what are the
Yeah.
presentation?
Maybe you should.
Yeah. Okay.
That's perfect. That's fine. Lovely.
तो सर पहले डिस्कस करते हैं कि जो चैलेंजेस कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग, हम जो लैंड राइट्स का जब काम शुरू किए तो हमारे पास बहुत टाइप का चैलेंजेस आया था। तो हमें पहले देखना पड़ेगा कि चैलेंजेस कहाँ कहाँ से आया था। तो सर कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग हम किनका करेंगे? जब भी ये जागा मिशन में जब कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग शुरू हुआ तो इसमें कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग हम बेसिकली चार स्टेक होल्डर्स को लेकर पूरा प्रोजेक्ट बना था। गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल थे, एनजीओ पार्टनर्स थे, हमारे एसडीएस थे और लोकल लीडर्स थे। सर लोकल लीडर्स का मतलब सर इलेक्टेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव जो होते हैं और लोकल का कुछ लीडर्स होते हैं। तो इन चारों लोगों का हमें करना था कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग। तो सर शुरू करते हैं गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल से। सर गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल का कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग इसलिए जरूरी था क्योंकि सर जो जितने भी है यहाँ पे एडिशनल डिस्ट्रिक्ट मजिस्ट्रेट है, सब कलेक्टर है, ये सब हायर सीनियर ऑफिशियल्स है और उनके वार्ड ऑफिसर, कम्युनिटी ऑर्गेनाइजर, ये सब ग्राउंड में काम करने वाले ऑफिशियल्स है। तो जब ये प्रोजेक्ट शुरू हुआ, ये प्रोजेक्ट अपने आप में एक यूनिक प्रोजेक्ट था और लैंड के ऊपर बहुत ज्यादा काम उड़ीसा में हुआ नहीं था अर्बन एरिया में। तो इसके लिए इन सबका ओरिएंटेशन जरूरी था। इनका ओरिएंटेशन सर दो टाइप में हम करवाए थे। एक था इन हाउस ओरिएंटेशन जो कि ऑफिस में हम कराए थे उनके ऑफिस में जाके, और दूसरा था उनको फील्ड लेकर करवाए थे। ऑफिस में सर उनको प्रोजेक्ट का एक्ट और रूल का डिटेल्स हम बताए थे, और फील्ड में जब हम जाके देखे तो मैप रीडिंग कैसे करेंगे और उनका स्लम का बाउंड्री कैसे आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे, ये सब हम फील्ड में उनको ओरिएंटेशन दिए थे। और सर ये यहाँ पे हमारा एक इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट है रेवेन्यू वेरिफिकेशन। टोटल लैंड का जितना भी काम होता है कंप्लीटली डिपेंडेंट रहता है रेवेन्यू ऑफिसर्स के ऊपर और रेवेन्यू डिपार्टमेंट के ऊपर। तो सर रेवेन्यू वेरिफिकेशन जब होता था, हम बेसिकली आरआई और अमीन को लेकर हम रेवेन्यू वेरिफिकेशन करवाते थे। वो लोग सैंपल वेरिफिकेशन करते थे। ड्रोन सर्वे के अंदर तो पूरा एरिया स्टेटमेंट जनरेट हो जाता था, लेकिन उसमें कितना करेक्ट है नहीं है इसके लिए सैंपल वेरिफिकेशन हम करते थे 5% का। तो वो 5% जो वेरिफिकेशन होता था वो कम्प्लीटली अमीनो और आरआई लोग ही करते थे। अभी तक तो कहीं पे जरूरत नहीं पड़ा है, मतलब उससे ज्यादा दो चार हम देखते थे, वो पूरा 100% एक्यूरेट रहता था, इसलिए वो लोग उसको अप्रूव करवा देते थे। उसके बाद सर ग्रीवांस एनालिसिस। सर ग्रीवांस में क्या होता था कि हम जब भी आरआई वेरिफिकेशन होता था उसके बाद जितना भी उसका जो भी रिपोर्ट आया उसमें कभी कभी कुछ कुछ ग्रीवांस रहता था। सर ग्रीवांस ऐसे ग्रीवांस आता था जैसे एक हमारा हमारा ये जो प्रोजेक्ट था इसमें जो लैंड हम अलॉट करते थे वो वॉल टू वॉल हम अलॉट कर रहे थे, लेकिन ये जो एक्ट था इसके बारे में जो हाउस होल्ड है उनको पूरे अच्छी तरह से पता नहीं था। इसलिए कभी कभी वो सोचते थे कि हमारे बैकवर्ड में जो पीछे हमारा जो जमीन है वो भी इसमें इंक्लूडेड रहेगा, आगे जो जमीन है वो इंक्लूडेड रहेगा। लेकिन हम जो एरिया स्टेटमेंट बनाते थे तो वो डिपेंड करता था वाल वाल टू वाल, जितना उनका एरिया होता था उतना एरिया उनको हम सेटल करते थे। तो लेकिन उसके बाद वो ग्रीवांस लेके आते थे, हमारा ज्यादा जमीन है, पीछे जमीन है, आगे जमीन है, तो वो सबको ग्रीवांस रिड्रेसल किया जाता था और हम हर एक ईच ग्रीवांस को हम अच्छे से देखते थे, और हमारा जो ऑफिशियल्स है, रेवेन्यू टीम है, वो उसको लिख कर उनको आंसर करते थे। सिर्फ सर भुवनेश्वर में 13,000 ग्रीवांस आया था हमारे पास, वो सबको हम रिड्रेसल सभी ग्रीवांस का किए। सर ग्रीवांस रिड्रेसल के बाद हमारा आता है अप्रूवल का स्टेज। अप्रूवल का स्टेज में सर पहले होता है एसडीआरसी के कमिटी। एसडीआरसी कमिटी होता है जिसमें सर जितना डॉक्यूमेंट आया है, जितना ग्रीवांस आया है, वो सबको वेरीफाई करने के बाद वहां से एक प्रपोजल जाता है एसडीआरसी के पास। तो उस एसडीआरसी में उसका अप्रूवल, फाइनल अप्रूवल होता है। लेकिन सर ये जो दोनों कमिटी है, इससे स्क्रूटिनी सब कमिटी में 7 गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल से और SDRC के कमेटी में 8 गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल्स है। इनको भी ओरिएंट करना पड़ता था, हम लोग ओरिएंटेशन इनका भी करते थे कि आपका रोल और रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी क्या है। जैसे कि स्क्रूटिनी सब कमेटी में तहसीलदार सर रहते हैं एक मेंबर, तो उनका क्या रोल है इस प्रोजेक्ट में और इस जो अप्रूवल के प्रोसेस में, तो वो डिटेल उनको ओरिएंटेशन हम करते थे। उसके बाद आता था SDRC में भी कुछ ऑफिसर्स होते थे, NGO पार्टनर होते थे, तो उनको भी हम ओरिएंट करते थे। उसके बाद सर NGO का भी ट्रेनिंग हुआ था, उनका ओरिएंटेशन हुआ था। उस ओरिएंटेशन और ट्रेनिंग में हम लोग उनको पूरा एप्लीकेशन वो कैसे यूज करेंगे, लोगों को पूरा टोटल पहले हमको प्रोसेस बताए, सर्वे का प्रोसेस क्या होगा क्या नहीं होगा। उसके बाद उनको एक्ट और रूल समझाए थे। उसके बाद सर कम्युनिटी मोबिलाइजेशन के बारे में उनको समझाए थे। ये तो सर एप्लीकेशन और मोबाइल सर्वे का था। SDA सर सिलेक्शन जो होता था, हम SDA को ओरिएंट करके SDA सिलेक्शन करते थे, तो सबका कंसेंट लेकर ही हम SDA सिलेक्शन करते थे। ये सर स्लम बाउंड्री और हाउस होल्ड आइडेंटिफिकेशन के लिए भी हम SDS का ओरिएंट करते थे। और सर ये मैप रीडिंग के लिए सर SDA और जितने ऑफिशियल ग्राउंड ऑफिशियल्स हैं उनको ओरिएंट करते थे। ये सर सर्वे का है। और सर ये लोकल लीडर्स जो है सर, हमारा लोकल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव, जैसे कि म्यूनिसिपैलिटी में काउंसिलर्स होते हैं, कॉर्पोरेटर्स होते हैं कॉर्पोरेशंस में, उनको भी हम ओरिएंट किए थे, क्योंकि उनके बिना हम ग्राउंड में काम नहीं कर सकते। उनको ओरिएंट करने के बाद वो हमें बहुत हेल्प किए थे। और सर चैलेंजेस, जैसे कि सर प्रीवियस स्लाइड्स में हम देखा, ये तो उसका एक कंसोलिडेटेड वर्जन है, तो यहाँ पे जैसे कि गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल जो होते हैं उनके पास बहुत सारा काम रहता है, इसलिए वो प्रॉपरली टाइम नहीं दे पा रहे थे हमें। और उनके डिफरेंट डिफरेंट लाइन डिपार्टमेंट के साथ कोऑर्डिनेशन में भी प्रॉब्लम रहता है, तो इसको हम धीरे धीरे करके सॉल्व किए डिफरेंट डिफरेंट वेज से। और NGO और एनुमरेटर्स के पास भी सर उनका रिटेंशन का एक रिस्क होता था, क्योंकि जब जितने लोग आज जाके सर्वे किए वो कल आएंगे परसों आएंगे, उसका कुछ श्योरिटी नहीं था। तो उसको रिटेंशन करने के लिए भी उनका हम डेली रिव्यू करते थे, ओरिएंटेशन करते थे, तो उनका क्या प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है क्या नहीं हो रहा है वो सब हम देखते थे। और सर लोकल लीडरशिप में सर, जैसे कि आपको पता है कि वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है सभी चीज में, क्योंकि आंसरेबल वो लोगों से आंसरेबल रहते हैं हमेशा। तो उनको भी हम ओरिएंटेशन देते थे कि वो कैसे पब्लिक को फेस करेंगे, इस प्रोजेक्ट के बारे में बताएंगे, और कैसे उस ग्राउंड में जो जो प्रॉब्लम होता है वो कैसे सॉल्व करेंगे। थैंक यू सर।
Thank you very much, Rahul. We got an overview of all the processes involved and the capacity training that you had to do for it. It was very revealing. We need to, Suchi, we need to move on to Mr. Budhadeba Bhoi from SDA Bhoi Sarai. I see he is walking. He's been there from earlier, but there he comes. Perfect.
Yes,
Over to you, Suchi.
बुद्धदेव सर, आपनको सुबह जाउची?
ଆଜ୍ଞା
नमस्कार। एबे आपण
नमस्कार।
आरंभ करंतु टिके। आज्ञा आरंभ करंतु सर। आपण टिके कहिबे, तापरे मु टिके ट्रांसलेट कर देबी, तापरे आपण पुनी कहिबे। आरंभ करंतु सर। थैंक यू।
ମୁଁ ଅମଣିଆପାଟଣା ଭୁଇଁସାରୁ କହୁଛି। ମାଟି ତଟି ପଡ଼ିଯାଇଛି ମୋର ହେଲା। ଇଏ ଆମେ ଅମଣିଆପାଟଣା ବସ୍ତି ବୋଲି ଗୋଟେ ନାଁ ଥିଲା। ଏଠି ବସ୍ତି କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଗ୍ରାମ ବୋଲି ଆମର ପୂର୍ବରୁ ବାପା ଜେଜ ଆମର କାଠଚୋଡ଼ି ନଦୀ ମଝିରେ ଆମ ଘର ଥିଲା। ଦି ପିଢ଼ି ସେଠୁ ଉଠି ଉଠିକି ଆସିଲେ। ଆମ ବେଳକୁ ଏଇ ଅମଣିଆପାଟଣା ଭୋଇସାହିରେ ଆମେ ବାସ ଘର କରି ଆମେ କହୁଛୁ, ମାନେ ବାସିନ୍ଦା ଆମେ ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଜନ୍ମସ୍ଥାନ ଏଇଠି ଜେଜେଙ୍କର ବାପା। ଆମେ କୋଉଠି ବସ୍ତି କରିନୁ। ଆମକୁ ସରକାର କରିଥିଲେ ସେତେବେଳେ କଣ, ସ୍ଲମ୍ ଏରିଆରେ ସ୍ଲମ୍ ଏରିଆ ଡିକ୍ଲେୟାର କଲେ, ଆମେ ସ୍ଲମ୍ ଏରିଆ ରହିଛୁ। ସେଇ ହିସାବରେ ଚାଲିଛି ମା। ଦୀର୍ଘ ବାପା ଜେଜ ମଲା ପରେ ଆମର କିଛି ବର୍ଷ ପରେ ଆମେ ଏମିତି ବହୁତ କଷ୍ଟରେ ଚଳି ଆସିଛୁ। ଜଙ୍ଗଲ ଗଛ ଉଚ୍ଚ ହେଇ ବାଟ ଘାଟ କିଛି ନାହିଁ, ଲାଇଟ୍ ବି ନାହିଁ, ପାଣି ବି ନାହିଁ। ଏବେ ଯୋଉ ଦୀର୍ଘ କିଛି 2000 କେତେ ମସିହାରୁ ଆମର ମ୍ୟୁନିସିପାଲିଟି ଲାଗୁ ହେଲା, ଲାଗି ହେଇକିନି ଇଏ ବି 10-15 ବର୍ଷ ଚାଲିଗଲା। ହେଲା ପରେ ବି କିଛି ସୁଫଳ ମିଳିଲା ନାହିଁ, ଲାଇଟ୍ ପାଇଟ୍ କିଛି ମିଳିଲା ନାହିଁ। କିଛି ଦିନ ପରେ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ସରକାର ଆସିଲେ ଜାଗା ମିଶନ ବୋଲି ବାହାର କଲେ, ଜାଗା ମିଶନରେ ଏସଟି ଗ୍ରୁପ ଗୁଡା ଆମର ବାଛିବାକୁ କହିଲେ। ବାଛିଲା ଭିତରେ ଆମର ମା କଣ ଗୋଟେ ଗଢା ଗଲା ଗୋଟା ସଭା ଡକା ହେଇ ବଛା ହେଲା 11 ଜଣ, ପ୍ରେସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ସେକ୍ରେଟାରୀ
जन मिसी आम 3टा मेंबर रही 11 जन मेंबर अलग आम पचक पच से आरंभ है कम कम आरंभ से सरकार विगति सरकार थिला बेले फास्ट जो आरंभ कले आम घर कम आम गोटा वर्ष धरी 70 बखरा घर सब हरिजन आदिवासी गरीब श्रेणी लोक सब मूलिया कई ना चाकरिया कई गोटा सरकारी हो कि प्राइवेट कंपनी हो कौटि चाकरी करना मूल लगे मूल जगह मापिले रोड करेंगे कौ पटे गली रोड अच्छी कौटी बंका रोड अच्छी कौ सीधा रोड अच्छी ये सब आरंभ कले मुझे कौन करा प्रत्येक गली की लोक सुविधा लाइट ना अच्छा रोड ना आम वर्ष वर्ष धर ठाकुर पूजा करूँ भगवत माघ सप्तमी सरकार अनुदान आम ग्रामवासी मिलित सहयोग नहीं मीटिंग रे जो आम प्रेसिडेंट सेक्रेटरी थिलु सब एकजुट हो ठाकुर गोटा बड़ छात भी तैयारी कलु सी जी पैसा देने नौला आम हाथ दे ग्रामवासी मिस कलु गला फास्ट आरंभ ए सरकार काम द्वितीय जगह मिशन जब पशिला जगह मिशन ये बाहर लोक पिला छुआ राति भिखारी गर्भवती हो बुढ़ा बुढ़ी हो बाहर को झाड़ चक्र फेरिया जाती गोटे सूत्र तैयारी 10-12 जन सी पुणी किसी दिन जाइए आरंभ कले गोटा परिचय पत्र घर तैयारी कले सी भी तैयारी पिला खेल झुलनी लगागला द्वितीय प्रत्येक गली लाइट लगे प्रत्येक गली फाइबर रोड करागला लास्ट एति खुशी अच्छी से जगह मिशन नहीं आमको सरकार गोटा प्रमाण पत्र भी देले आर खुशी बुझल जिते प्रमाण पत्र देदेले प्रमाण पत्र देला बेले इलेक्शन डिक्लेयर होगा आउ कि पट्टा रही जाए म्यूनिसिपालिटी सीएमसी आउ कि आउ पाई जाइछन्ति घर अप्लाई भी कहले कर घर अप्लाई रही घर खंडे हो पारा नहीं सबू जाक झुंकुरी घर पानी पवन वर्षा तोफान नई बड़ी आसिले सब छाती डर रोचे पिला आमर केमती बचे आज तो आम आजुचु काली चली पिला केमती बचे से घर खंडे बहुत उपकृत आम रहीचु यही खुशी हो पिला स्कूल जावाई रोड घाट नहीं रोड घाट करागला आम्बुलांस आसिया पूरा हाई बाई मेन जातीय राजपथ 16 शाखार मेन रोड कर घर कर रहीचु दीर्घ
Again,
Thank you.
thank you, Budhadev sir. I'll just translate what Budhadev sir mentioned. He also aligned with what the other FTA members had mentioned. Budhadev sir mentioned that he brought up in that particular area that has been their village, which is now listed under a slum by the corporation. And so his fathers have been staying there from ages. However, there has been no facilities, no civic facilities in that particular settlement. There has been no road earlier, no lights earlier, so they have been staying in the darker times. Then cut to the Jaga Mission phase. When the Jaga Mission was introduced, he again mentioned that they were asked to form something called an STA. They formed an STA, and based on after the formation of an STA, they were asked what are the things which are not available in their settlements. They mentioned that there is no road in their settlement, there is no light, for which the road and light has been kind of provisioned. Then he also mentioned that they had a very ancestral temple for which there was no roof there, which was also supported with. And then for the women who have been kind of not having the toilets there, the toilet have been provisioned. Similarly, like the other FTA members have mentioned, there has been few open spaces which has been developed, some child play equipments which has been installed. So, and most importantly, they now hold the land rights. Similarly, there are few households which do not have land rights, for which they are awaiting the land rights for those households. In addition to that, now under the Jaga Mission, they have been kind of able to apply for the housing facility under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. They have applied for that, and now all that they are waiting is a kind of a pakka house or a concrete house, which would give them all of the facilities that they have been looking forward. That's what he had to submit. Thank you so much, Budhadeba.
Thank you so much to Budhadeba ji for also staying with us so long it's become quite dark in Cuttack. Kirti Bhai, means we've been answering the questions on chat and on the Q&A. Kirti Bhai, would you like to conclude means on the session today? Kirti Bhai, over to you.
I think have the question answer thing been handled
Yes,
satisfactorily?
yes,
Even
we've
if it takes
answered most of the questions, Kirti Bhai. The participants have been very active both on chat and on Q&A, and we've been answering them simultaneously. So, given your vast experience over these decades, means we were very keen to hear from you about how you thought the SDAs and the program look to you from this discussion, and we can conclude then and go on, invite everyone for the next one, which is on the 28th. Over to you, Kirti Bhai.
No, thank you, Shubhagato ji. I essentially have a number of questions. And the reason I have a number of questions is this, that I'm always impressed by what I heard about this. But today, when I hear the story in detail, in the nitty-gritty, I'm more surprised. And I think I have more questions to ask. Like, say, for instance, Suchita ji, we have been involved in, for what, 50, 60 years, a huge amount of community work in terms of talking to people, listening to people. And absolutely spotless, kind of a way in which you describe the whole process of SDA formation and working. I fully trust it. And I said, oh God, how did it work? I think, and because it's not very simple, everyone knows. It's very complicated. And especially you're working this on a scale. And it may not be possible to answer today, but I think it's a very important thing to look at. As a matter of fact, Shubhagato ji, I would probably think that maybe one of the session, we should devote maybe
Yes,
half
Kirti
time.
The following one, not the next one, the one after that is fully dedicated to SDA's various aspects and questions
So,
and answers.
I'm saying basically answering not only how it happened, but even go beyond why did it happen, because it doesn't happen in most cases. So that's one. Second thing is this, that see, one of the interesting things which I noticed today and I liked very much is the manner in which the community people came through. We had 4 of them. And as a matter of fact, if I realized that maybe 50% of the time of the session today was used by them. But look at that confidence. Look at that story narrating abilities, the way they communicated and said it. And I think it's a huge testimony of empowerment, of enablement that seems to have happened. And I thought I just wanted to mention this, Other thing that I wanted to mention was this very interesting presentation on capacity building. And the reason, once again, is to take these 4 categories of people: government officers, NGOs, slum dwellers, and local leaders. And you have a large number of, settlements and situations to be covered. And I was very keen to find out, so the Shishir Saab, what kind of organizational structure you had, how many people you're working for you, and how did it manage? Because it's a tremendous task that has been done. And I wanted to kind of ask this question, not necessarily to answer now, but something that I would like to examine at some point of time. And then just wanted to come back last to 4 statistics, which Das Saab talked about. 7,500 crore rupees of land that went to slum dwellers. I don't know if anyone has done any calculation of how much land costs reaches to the poor people. We know how much goes to others. So it's a burning pot. Second thing is this, that it is probably incredible that you're talking about 2.5 lakh cases and not even a single litigation. I'm not questioning the claim. I'm saying what made it work? 202.5 lakh cases and no single litigation in land. And land is an area which is very famous for litigation, whether you cause or no cause. And the third thing which I observed meticulously is your reference time and again that community knows better. You brought it out several times that every time you wanted to kind of check, cross-check something, the best source was the community people. And they came out very beautifully and went on saying that you always trusted them, you always believed in them. So this particular segment of presentation today have brought in incredibly interesting aspects of community, people, organization, and what is involved in scaling up. And I once again, one is not very sure if one has seen this before at this level in this particular form. So I personally feel that this has been an amazing session, huge amount of learning, and everyone really kind of deserves congratulations. And I wanted to take this small little responsibility and thank everyone personally. I've thanked institutions which are doing this together, and therefore Suchisnata, terrific, want to meet you sometime to understand how well you work. Nikita ji, Deka, we couldn't hear you much. There was a problem with the voice, and I'm an architect and I'm working on this for a long time. So I want to catch up with you some part of time and understand what you learn, what you unlearn, which is more important. Srinibas Mallik Saab, Mamata Gouda ji, Pankajini Swain ji, and Budhadeba Bhoi ji. I think thank you very much for being here and enlightening us. There's no other word. You're just not communicated. You have made us richer by what you said, and of course, the way you are doing this. So thank you very much, Shubhagato ji, for managing this beautifully. Thank you very much. And thank you, my colleague Chitrakshi, for all the work behind the scene. We meet again on 28th for the October, for the 4th webinar of the series. I'm sure you must have all realized that this is incredibly rich material in terms of learning about slums, dealing with slums, managing slum issue. I hope you will be there to share your thoughts and share the learning processes that will take place. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And best wishes for Diwali to everyone in between.
Same to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sahoo.